research is an essential element of knowledge. Through research, innovative products and creative ideas emerge, as well as practical solutions to our personal, economic, social, and environmental problems. Given the trends and global issues such as over-tourism, geopolitics, climate change, migration, technical or technological advancement, amongst others, where is tourism leading to? And how research is shaping our tourism industry. To our dear guests, speakers, professors, students, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the University of Aveiro, Department of Economics, Management, Industrial Engineering and Tourism, Governance, Competitiveness, and Public Policies Research Unit, and Tourism Think Tank proudly welcome you to the 2019 International Agenda for Tourism Research, State of the Art, and Future Directions. Before we start, I would like to say to everyone that we will be having live streaming, and everybody can follow us live via YouTube. And I hope that will be okay for everyone, for photos and videos to be taken by our IT staff and the committee. I hope it is fine for all of you. Today we will have meaningful sessions packed with presentations, debate, and discussion. This forum is to provide insights and present discussions about research in tourism. It has also the objectives of determining the research directions toward the attainment of the 2030 UN Sustainable Development Goals, reflecting on how participatory process among stakeholders enhances tourism research, learning the techniques and best practices in the conduct of research publications within and across borders, and of course, fostering synergies and collaboration amongst scholars and the academia for the advancement of quality tourism research. I am Rogelio P. Flores Jr., a scientific fellow of the Governance, Competitiveness, and Public Policies Research Unit and a PhD student in tourism from the organizing committee. We welcome you all for today's event. A very good morning. Before we proceed, we'll be joined by our respective professors, of course, from our university, and we would like to welcome all of them here. First, we have, of course, our pro-rector, Professor Joao Coutinho. Second, we have, of course, our very active as well coordinator of one of the excellent research units in Portugal, our GovCop research unit, Professor Anabela Botelho, and of course, no other than our director, head of the Department of Economics, Management, Industrial Engineering, and Tourism, Professor Carlos Costa. Now, I invite all of you to start our session.
Acho que está. Bom. Dear all, good morning. In the name of the Rector and Vice Rector of University of Aveiro, I would like to welcome you all to this meeting on tourism research. It is my pleasure to open this session today, and I would like to congratulate the department and the Director of the Department, Professor Carlos Costa, for this initiative. The University of Aveiro has seen itself since its inception as a research institution. And part of this DNA are the doctoral programs. They are the main tool of the research, along with the research units that structure, conduct, create the knowledge that we produce here at the university. The university, when it was created, the first area that it addressed was telecommunications. And in these last 45 years of life of this university, after telecommunications, environment, materials, were seen as the biggest areas of research and
Can
most
you hear my
important.
sound?
Hello, Ian, the son.
And
Stroke technical support.
I'm technical support.
in the meantime, and in the last decade, another area emerged that was tourism. Tourism is today one of the most interesting areas of development here in the university. It's an area that was, for many of us that come from other fields of expertise, like myself from engineering, a surprise to realize that from a moment to the other it blossomed and it became one of the most fruitful and the most impactant areas from the university, with a power to attract students from all over the world, creating one of the most successful PhD programs in the university and one of the most international PhD programs in the university. Being the pro-rector for the internationalization, it's amazing to see the process and the work and the fruits of this work of this PhD program, not only in the ability to attract the students, but also in the way they go into the entire world and they position themselves as productive agents in the tourism research and in the tourism industry. So I would like to congratulate all of you for being here today and wish you a pleasant day of work and fruitful discussions. I hope this is the first of many meetings on this agenda on tourism research. Thank you.
Sorry, good morning to all. And I'm not an engineer, so I apologize for this inconvenience. Now, on behalf Okay, now. Okay, thank you so much. Now, on behalf of the GovCop Research Unit, I would like to thank and welcome all of you to this meeting. The topic of tourism development is an important part of our research unit, and I am delighted that the dynamism and effort of our researchers has been contributing significantly to the advancement of knowledge on this topic. As we all know, the tourism sector represents over 10% of the Portuguese GDP. And as it gains weight on our economy, we need to be clear not only on how to best benefit from the opportunities it represents, but also on the challenges that it poses. I am certain that your expertise on the topic will help us all on preparing and taking the right steps. I am therefore eager to listen to you and to learn from you, and I do appreciate your kindness in being with us today. So, without repeating myself the words of the pro-rector, I just thank you and welcome you again, and hope we all have a very fruitful meeting. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning. First of all, thank you very much for coming and for joining us. It's a great pleasure to see you all here. Let me start by thanking our opening panel, in particular Pro-Rector Professor João Coutinho. Let me also thank our head of the Research Center, Professor Anabela Botelho. Of course, that we would like to thank our speakers, and today we are going to have, I would say, resident and live speakers. Professor José Manuel Simões is from the University of Lisbon. He's already with us. It's a great pleasure. Even last week I was in Lisbon. In his school, he got a very important school where they also have a very important PhD in tourism. We are going to have also Professor Paula Romualdo. She's from the University of Minho, located in Braga, and she will be here with us. She will be also one of the residents, I would say. And then we will have live 4 guests. Professor Dimitris Bohalis, he's based in Bournemouth, in the UK. Professor British, but at present she's working in Malaysia. Then we have Stanislav Ivanov, he's in Bulgaria, and Professor Luis Trigo is from São Paulo, one of the most important universities in Brazil. Let me say a few words right in the beginning, just to say this. This department is a big department. We have around 1,500 students, 4 main areas: economics, management, industrial engineering, and tourism. We all are very proud of these 4 areas, and they are developing and expanding rapidly. Tourism, this is seminar is about tourism, so let's talk about tourism. Tourism was launched, was created in this university in 1988 alongside industrial engineering. In 2001, we also launched a master program in tourism, and the PhD program started in 1995. At present, right now, we have 85 PhD students registered, coming from all over the world. 70% of our students come from outside, I would say. And then our research students in the groups we have here are, just to give you an idea, in one of the rooms we have 4 researchers. 3 came from outside, 1 is Portuguese. So what is relevant for us is to attract good research. And good research comes from all over the world, and tourism is an emerging area. And we have a lot to learn from the experiences that we can observe all around the world. This is the reason why also we have very important links across the globe, in Brazil, in Europe, in China, in Asia, wherever we have friends, and you will see today that some of them, or many of them, will be live with us, and we will also be asking questions. So we will not be only in this room, but we will be broadcasting to the world, which is good. And our objective is to think and to learn about research in tourism. Portugal is expanding. Tourism is extremely important in this country. Of course that we are one of the references in the world, but we should also think that we have a lot to learn from experience from different parts in the world. And this is the reason why we want to learn with them. We want to learn from good practices that come from outside. And above all, for this school, what we really want is to do good research. And as far as research is concerned, Portugal may be a very important and a giant in the economics of tourism, but as far as research is concerned, we are not that big, and we have still room and many things to learn from different countries. So, thank you very much to the audience. thank you very much to our panel, and thank you very much to our speakers, and we hope you will feel comfortable today, this morning, with us. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much to our panelists, the first session. Yes, yes. And we will now proceed to the keynote speeches and presentation from our four respective professors. We will first move on with, as mentioned by Professor Carlos, Professor Dimitrios Bouhalis. Professor Dimitrios Bouhalis is the current head of the Department of Tourism and Hospitality at the Faculty of Management in Bournemouth University. And he has authored a lot of tourism books, journals, as well as editor of several known international tourism journals.
So we'll be starting in 2 or 3 minutes. The first speaker is going to be, as Rogelio was saying, Professor Dimitrios Bouhalis from the University of Bournemouth. Let me tell you that, I mean, in an area like this, we don't talk about competition. We all think about our friends, and we work in a very large network. And Dimitrios was my colleague in the University of Surrey when we did the master several decades ago. We did together the master and also a PhD program between 90 and 96. So Dimitrios is going to start. He's now based in the University of Bournemouth. They have very important tourism courses there. So thank you very much, Dimitrios, for coming and for joining us. Then we also see Professor Eugenia Wickens. She's also one of our speakers. It's great to see you, Eugenia.
Nice to see you, Carlos.
Thank you very much. And let me also tell you that it's going to be a pleasure to be with you in Vietnam in June. Eugenia is organizing a very nice conference in Eugenia. Stanislav, thank you very much for coming and for joining us. It's a great pleasure. How is the journal going?
Thank you.
Yeah. Professor, which journal? Your journal? Your journal is booming, accepting a number of papers, and you have a competitor, Dimitrios, with the Tourism Review. We are not competing with each other again. So it's brilliant journals we have in this area. So, in case you agree, we would like to start with the first speaker, Professor Dimitrios Bouhalis. Dimitrios, thank you very much for coming.
Bon dia, alegria. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I think I can hear myself. I guess you hear me. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I'm really unhappy that I cannot be with you in person, so I can enjoy your company and all the beautiful things of Portugal has got to offer. But hopefully I'll be there in 3 weeks. We'll spend some nice time together. So, can you hear me okay, Carlos? Are you okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. The sound
Okay.
and the quality of the image is brilliant.
Okay, super. So what I like to talk to you about is smart tourism towards 2030 and how the world is changing in terms of tourism and how new destination ecosystems are emerging, and they're disrupting everything we knew in the past and re-engineering the competitiveness and the agility of destinations. I'm not going to do my normal marketing things in the beginning, which says Tourism Review is one of the best journals that's expanding very fast. So I'd like to see new research being published in the journal, and also to tell people about the TTRA conference we organize on the 8th to 10th of April. That Carlos will be with us and several other colleagues will be with us, and would like to invite everybody to come and join us. So that's a marketing bit. Smart tourism. Smart tourism is changing what we're doing in the past to a very different environment of what's going to happen in the future. And basically, smart tourism is taking advantage of the interconnectivity and interoperability of integrated technologies that they re-engineer the process and data in order to produce innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing the value of the stakeholders. Basically, smartness is really about changing tourism development and tourism marketing from one organization to a network of organizations and ecosystems that will collectively perform to maximize the competitiveness and the agility towards adding value to all the stakeholders involved. Not only the customers, not only the producers, but the whole range of different people who are on the ecosystem. Smartness is the glue of interoperable, interconnected, and mutually beneficial systems and stakeholders, and provides the infrastructure for the value co-creation. And I think this is different to what a lot of conversations we had in the past about technology, digitization, automation, evolution, social media, reservations. Because smartness is all about real-time, dynamic, and adaptive systems that they customize, individualize, and contextualize information and provision. It's all about collective competitiveness and coordination for value co-creation. It is driven by consumers that they've got all the technologies now that they can personalize, contextualize, and co-create their experiences towards instant gratification. So what happens is that the consumers are actually driving these things because they really want to co-create their product. They are not happy with the standardized products. And they would like that to happen pre-travel, during travel, and post-travel. And they would like to engage with us in that sphere. The new smart traveler understand their environment. They speak everything because they go anywhere and they've got their mobile phone and they engage with their environment and they can understand everything. When I used to go to Korea 20 years ago, I was constantly lost. Now I'm not lost because Google Maps tell me exactly where I am and where I'd like to go. And it's telling me how to get there. And it tells me where's the nearest coffee. It tells me all kinds of things that I need to do. And what you have is a new generation of customers that they are also not only consuming information, but also create user-generated content, and they constantly enriching the information that's out there. Brand reputation is influenced dramatically because of that, because what happens is that they engage in that kind of co-creation and they constantly benefit from people saying how wonderful they are, and also at the same time they can be influenced when they're doing bad things. So it's the word of mouth that is driving a whole range of things. So on this framework which we're about to publish, you can see input where all the information that we can collect on open source data is being collected, is then being stored and analyzed on the cloud. And then you create descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analysis where you understand what's happening, where it's happening, how it's happening, what's going to happen next. And then out of that, you create value for the stakeholders. And you provide solutions that you are putting forward to them, and then they come as a feedback depending on whether they actually use this value that you've created or not use the value that you've created. Now, a lot of people say, okay, how do you collect this information? There are a lot of sensors in everything and all the machines and all the technologies that are going around. And this information is being collected constantly. So the speed of your car will tell us what is a traffic jam in any motorway or in any situation. The light and how much light it has got on the road will tell us things about the weather, or what's the humidity like, whether it's rainy or not. And all this contextual information is being analyzed constantly. Increasingly, you'll have wearables that will collect information from your body, from your heat, from the person, to understand what is the situation of the person in that particular moment. How does that person feels in that particular moment? Is this person relaxed? Is this person anxious? Is it sweaty? They feel danger? Or what is the situation? What do they look like? How long have they walked? I was recently in London going around, and I realized I've walked 12,000 steps on one day. That will be a very different situation from today that I'm working mostly from home, that I'm probably going to do about 600, 700 steps during the day. And again, that creates a whole range of different contextual information that we need to understand. This is the smart media monitoring and the social media monitoring, where we're looking at everything, we're collecting all this information, we process and we analyze this information. And this is something that's called the conversation prism from Brian Solis, where we say, we look into all the social media, what people are saying about things. And by the way, anybody who takes pictures of me today, please hashtag Buhali so my mother can see where I am and what I'm doing. Because wherever the data is on the social media platforms, it can be harnessed and can be analyzed in real time. We can listen what's happening, we can learn, and we can adapt. You is the brand in the middle, and you is really about how do we interact with this information, how do we adapt the product, and how can we personalize, contextualize, individualize the product in order to make sure that you maximize the benefit that you've got for all the stakeholders involved. So any information that I can pick up from the system, wherever the systems are, can enable me to dynamically adapt the product and engage in conversation. Gradually, we're getting to this situation. Father, I've sinned. I already know. So we know a lot of things that are happening. We know a lot of things that even people, they don't tell us. We know when someone is in love by how they are changing their behavior on Facebook. We know who are they in love with because they are checking their Facebook more times. We know who is a friend of who is communicating with whom. So all kinds of information is coming forward. And that is coming back to consumers as value propositions. And they're coming through beacons, they're coming through mobile applications, smartness, smart mobiles, whatever, to actually provide those things. In order to maximize smartness, you really need to bring together all the technology enablers and a whole range of other stakeholders, governments, police, destination management organizations, utility services, banking, finance, transportation providers, local residents, tourists, all of those things coming together to co-create that information that is then coming back in the process to maximize the benefit. And we have to manage tourism before, during, after. So most of the tourism and technology has been concentrated on the booking phase. And then we start going a little bit before on the planning phase. But really, the big battles that we're going to have in the future is the dreaming phase, where people are dreaming or people are in a normal flow situation, and then they start dreaming about what they're going to do. And then at the experience phase, when they're out there, they're doing things, they're experiencing things, and then they interact with their environment electronically and digitally to maximize the value they've got. There's a bit of the sharing phase as well, which used to be after the event, but now this has disappeared, and this has come into the experience phase where a lot of things are happening together, because we constantly sharing information as it happens. I went a couple of days ago, I went to an opening of the Real Greek Wine Bar here in Bournemouth, and what was happening is that I was narrating the story. So I was storifying what was happening in real time. People were interacting. People who are there, they enjoy a glass of wine and a nice Greek food. Those who are not, they were jealous enough to come the next day. And this is where I see some of the things that are happening in the future. And Stan is smiling because I guess he's going to talk about robots in a minute. It's his area. But at least I'll do a little bit of introduction, Stan. And the thing is shared resources and autonomous vehicles. I'll go very quickly through that because Stan is going to cover some of that. This is Hena Hotel in Japan, that they're using robots. And recently they fired 50% of the robots because they were doing the wrong thing. Apparently, when the robot was listening to people snoring, they thought that they were speaking to them, and they kept asking them, so what would you like, sir? And eventually the tourist says, can you please leave me alone to sleep? I don't want anything, I just want to snore. This is robots cleaning. They're going around cleaning places. These are robots that bring you chocolate at 4 o'clock in the morning on room service. And this Leo and Cleo, that they are kind of service robots in the Chicago EMC2 hotel. Now, what really excites me is the sharing economy and the sharing resources. And this is some of the bikes that you've got in China, where what's happening is that in China, you used to have a lot of, everybody had their own bikes. Now you are sharing bikes. And what you do is you are getting one of these bikes, you're getting a mobile application with OFO or the other 3 or 4 big companies that they're out there. And what you do is you locate the bike, wherever the bike is, you pick it up and you go. The bike is, you can go wherever you like. And what's the innovation here is that you don't have docks. You take the bike wherever you like to take the bike. You don't have to take it from the station to the city of center and then dock there. And the bike is quite smart. It's got all kinds of technology, so it's quite durable. But also it can tell the world where the bike is. And that opportunity, that gives you the opportunity to actually have a very distributed sharing economy. Now, if you take the bike example and then you expand it to other things, you see the shared cars, and that's what the Enterprise Car Club is doing in the UK, where you're collecting a car, you're a member of the club, and you're collecting a car from wherever the car is being parked. And you share the car. Because if you think about it, we are spending a lot of money buying very expensive assets, and we have them dying on the car parking for which we are using for not using the actual asset. So we're going to go in a different kind of way with assets. A lot of other things that with smartness is about safety and security, and how we can manage really big operations, and how we can get information very quickly to address issues that they are related with safety and security. And you find a lot of the technologies that are coming from that is coming from surveillance and safety and security applications, where a lot of those things are coming forward to manage crisis quite often. Now, the other big thing I think is coming our way is the autonomous vehicles. And the autonomous vehicles, they'll have all kinds of technologies to interact with their surrounds and engage with the context and the environment, and learn how to operate in relationship to other users in the marketplace. And again, this is going to change dramatically the way we live and the way we operate, and also for tourism, because the vehicle itself will be doing the guiding, it's going to take you, it will be driving itself and will engage. And that will give you quite a lot of time to enjoy yourself doing things that you wouldn't normally do when you're driving currently. That will enable us to interact with our environment, understand what's happening around us, guide us, show us the routes that we really like to do according to what is our preference and what we like to engage. So what I'd like to say is that the tourism ecosystem is changing rapidly, and a lot of the tourism that we've been doing for the last 10, 20 years will be relevant in the future because the tourism development will change dramatically. Of course, the destinations, they're always trying to maximize their competitiveness and their sustainability, to differentiate and engage their reputation and their image in order to attract more people. But what's going to happen is that you'll have a co-created memorable experiences that will be based on dynamic, strategic, and tactical marketing, which will be enabled by technology, big data, and connectivity. And all that will be driven by agility. It will be how can we manage the information in a very agile way and operate in destinations. So this is Bournemouth, where I'm based, and we're doing a whole range of different things in Bournemouth, like the testbed for 5G mapping trials, where we're going to look into how technology can change the agility of the destination as a place and how we can manage those things together. I keep talking about context-based services, and that's my paper on SOCOMO, which I think we should be looking at, which is really looking to how internal context and external context is dynamically changing the tourism experience that's happening in the middle. And you've got mobile devices that will enable us to communicate, and social media where you can transform some of the information. When we're talking about context, we're talking about external context and internal context. The external context is all about the traffic, the light, the air pressure delays, weather, strikes, emergencies. And the internal context is what people would like to do internally in terms of the likes, goals, preference, tasks, emotional status, topics of interest, abilities, disabilities, and approaches. And those things will enable us to come forward in the middle, where you've got the tourism employees and the tourism organizations on the one side and the tourism consumer on the other side, to dynamically personalize the encounter in real time and understand what you are really want to do in that particular moment at this particular time. Increasingly, you'll have consumers going around with their mobiles, as we do already, and they will engage with their environment to maximize the value that they can get in real time. So what you've got on the one side, you've got the tourism suppliers that they are creating all kinds of data. So we understand what is the occupancy level of Aveiro today? How many rooms have we got in Aveiro, and what's the percentage of the rooms that's available? What's the average room rate? How many restaurants are booked today in Aveiro? And then all those things will be amalgamated to create data that's going to go up on the cloud. And then you'll have aggregators that are getting this data and create value and bring it back to consumers. And the smart tourism framework has been around for a long time. It's not new. What is new is the speed of this happening, how fast this is happening. Because in the past, you'll have a menu, you'll try it, and next year you may change the menu. Now you'll have a menu, you'll try it, you'll see what's happening, and then within days, within hours, you can change that and move forward. In tourism planning, and I've been going on with Carlos for years on tourism planning, we'll bring tourism planning and tourism marketing together, and in understanding in real time what is the dynamic concentration of resources and pressure in different areas, and how we can manage them together. So I talked about smart destinations, how you bring technology, suppliers, and demand together, and really how you can engage to bring smartness, to foster open innovation, to create investment and to create benefits through social capital, through participatory governance, in order to improve the collective competitiveness of the destination and the value for all the stakeholders. Thank you very much. Obrigadissimo.
So, Dimitrios, thank you very much indeed for coming, for joining us. We have slots of 15 minutes only, and of course that we are following our schedule, but I have a question from Zelia. She wants to ask you a question. The question is going to be very short, and the answer is also going to be short as well. Thank you very much.
Hello, Dimitrios. Good morning. I would like to ask you a question about big data. It's very important nowadays, all this information that you mentioned that we can get from different technologies, but how academia can use it? Because now the privacy settings and the policy of some websites, and now all these new regulations about data protection, how can we use it? So a lot of information is there, but how can we use it?
There are two or three issues with big data. So far, most of the data are proprietary. They're based on silos. So they are sitting wherever the data is sitting. So your railway system is keeping the data on how many people have come to Aveiro from Porto and how many people have come to Aveiro from Lisbon. But that information is sitting somewhere on a database that is only generating some statistics and some accounting for them. Equally, a lot of the other information that you've got, you know, the airlines, the airports, all of these guys, they are holding their own information. Increasingly, what's happening is that we're opening some of this data so the data can be accessible. And once you have got open data, you can actually manipulate the data and you can interrogate the data to find out what are the patterns. When are people arriving to Aveiro, for example? Are they arriving at 11 o'clock and they leave at 4? What are the implications of having people for 5 hours in Aveiro? And what can you do with the 5 hours? Or how can you communicate with these people and say, you know, don't leave at 5 o'clock, leave at 8. And here is 3 restaurants that they'll do special offers for you to engage some so you can have more benefits staying in Aveiro. So that's the one thing, is getting the data to open data. So from silos to open data, that's one thing. The second thing, as far as privacy is concerned, I think privacy is overrated and it's a thing of the past. And I know that I'm very controversial on that, but I guess Stan can be more controversial than me later. But the situation is that people are giving up privacy deliberately, or they tolerate to give up privacy. If I can ask a question, you can see how many people in the audience have got a Gmail account. How many people in the audience have got a Gmail account?
Everybody. I think, yeah, people are giving their own information, but
So what they've done is they've effectively give up their privacy for the benefit that Gmail is offering. I'm not judging whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying this is the state of the art. And also a lot of the young people, they don't really consider privacy the way that some of us did in the past. So what's going to happen is that increasingly what people will do is they'll give up privacy for benefits. And I subscribe to about 20 restaurants nearby where I live, because they keep sending me different offers. And I keep going every time, and I say, okay, here's my 50% off from your bill, please. And that's the benefit I get for the benefit I give them, which is, here's my telephone number, here's my email, here's where I live, this is how many times I'm eating in your restaurant. So there's a trade-off between value and privacy. And I think increasingly people are actually taking the benefit and they're giving up privacy.
Okay, thank you very much.
I know this is not what you want to hear, but that's...
Yeah, thank you very much, Dimitrios.
Okay, so let's shake. Palmas. Okay, Dimitrios, thank you very much for coming, for joining us. We had a very nice conversation even last night. We were on the phone together, and in 2 weeks you will be in Aveiro and in Viseu, so in case you want, Dimitrios is going to have an excellent presentation, I'm sure, in a workshop they are organizing somewhere in Viseu. So,
in Viseu. But also I'll come into Aveiro because I like your calderada and your
bacalhau com natas as well, and Portuguese wine as well. All right, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Dimitrios. So we'll move on from technology.
I'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. So today we have two people dealing with technology, Dimitrios and Stanislav. However, before doing this, let me introduce you Professor Eugenia Wickens. And she's in, I would say, in a different area, mostly on sustainability, okay, and sustainable development and so on. Eugenia is British. She was born in the UK, but at present she's based in Malaysia. And as I said before, she's the organizer of a very important conference, and a conference that now the new edition is going to be in Vietnam next June. So, Eugenia, the floor is yours. I hope we don't lose the connection. Yep. Is it working? In the meantime, I can also tell you that we have also Professor Luis Trigo from the University of São Paulo with us. Technology has this sort of problems, so this is the reason why we have two panels, one here and another one on the wire. In case that one disappears, we'll continue the discussion here. So there's no problem whatsoever. All right, so we have plan B. All right, so there was a crash with the technology. We can tell you that we tested everything yesterday. It did not crash, but it's part of this work. No problem at all. It's okay, don't worry. Yeah, it's coming back. They'll be coming back very, very soon. All right? For this first panel, I mean, we won't have time for questions, okay? It's gonna be only one polite question for each speaker, all right? So in this way we will keep, because our idea is to close this panel up to 10:30, 10:45, something like that. Stanislav, are you back? Technology is working. Eugenia? Okay, yes, you can see you. It's a great pleasure. Thank God you are back. Okay, so let's start with your presentation, Eugenia. I'm going to have a slot of up to 15 minutes, something like that. Thank you very much for coming. And the floor is yours.
States. And as you see, number one is no poverty, and number 8 is decent work and economic growth. Now, to my mind, this is a very ambitious agenda, and its vision really is to transform the world and to transform, of course, tourism. Now, at the heart of this agenda is all about sustainability. It does evoke lots of discussions, and some, of course, present sustainable development as a pathway to all that is good and desirable in society. Now, the key issue is about sustainability. I think the concept of sustainability, we should all see it as an ideal type concept in Max Weber's sense of the term. There are several definitions and several conceptualizations of sustainability, but for the purposes of this presentation, I have adopted the one which was first introduced in the Brundtland report. It's a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As we're all aware, there are 3 dimensions to the concept of sustainability: the environmental one, the social one, and of course the economic. Now, what comes to mind is, what is environmentally sustainable tourism? It implies, of course, positive impacts on environment, society, and economy. And the concept of sustainable development is very much associated with responsible consumption and responsible production. Responsible consumption, we have been told, of travel will bring necessary changes. And as I was saying earlier on, number 1 of the goals is alleviating poverty. We pledge that no one will be left behind. This should be the guiding principle in tourism research. Research of the so-called trickle-down effects of tourism reports that communities benefit from the development of sustainable tourism. However, this is very much debatable, that tourism can deliver on the trickle-down promise that it makes. Commentators point to increased poverty and social inequality. And we all know this is happening not just here in Europe, but also in Asia. Joblessness and precarious work. Work is very much seasonal, low paid, low skilled, and also it doesn't give you the confidence that you can progress if you get a job in tourism related services. Therefore, poverty alleviation is a huge global challenge and it has to be the guiding principle in any tourism research. The 2030 agenda calls for research on those billions of people who do not travel internationally, while many of them are affected by tourism. Now, there are clear dividing lines which run between rich and poor societies, rich and poor countries, between people who have the means to travel as tourists and those, of course, who do not. The tourism sector has a responsibility to ensure that people, the environment, and our climate are not negatively affected. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals provide guidance for the tourism sector to play a better role in achieving the 2030 agenda. We also aware that the impacts are multifaceted. They're categorized into three: economic, social, cultural, environmental. There are positive and negative, and all those which are reported in studies depend very much on the researcher's judgment, on the point of view, on the perspective, on the selective truths they present in the work, on their own values and their own beliefs. And here are some of the economic impacts of tourism. I can just, we are all familiar with the foreign exchange earnings, the contribution to local economies, and on the negative side is the seasonality, inflation, and of course the dependency. And socio-cultural impacts of tourism, the positive ones are the preservation and restoration of cultural heritage, the revival of traditional arts and crafts. And on the negative side is loss of cultural character and identity, loss of authenticity and meaning of traditional arts and crafts. Now, tourism relationships with the environment, however, is very complex. Many activities have adverse effects, and these are shown in many tourism studies. Impacts are linked to the construction of infrastructure such as roads, new airports, and tourism facilities, for instance, hotels, restaurants, and shops. A clean and healthy environment, of course, is essential to tourism and its sustainability. And there is a consensus here amongst many tourism researchers. And here we have the impacts of tourism. But the question that comes to mind is, can tourism act as an engine for development? And this is the problem. Promoters, of course, of tourism praise the industry as promising the engine development and contributing to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Using economic tourism statistics, they argue that growing tourism leads to sustainable development. Others argue against it by pointing to the negative impacts. But we've also heard recently about over-tourism, which is simply defined as overcrowding a certain destination, a certain attractions. Tourists go home, tourism occupation falls. Stop mass tourism, housing speculation. This is not tourism, this is an invasion. What has been happening is, this interest in over-tourism is because local residents are becoming very much alienated. Locals start to take their own action now. And of course, you have to be aware that it damages the physical environment and it does degrade tourist experiences of the visited community, of the visited attraction of place. Tourism growth and sustainable development. There are contradictions between tourism growth and sustainable development. For instance, air travel contributes to global warming. It leads to congestion, overcrowding, and increasing cost of living. So let us then talk about some research directions for tourism and sustainability. What measures should be taken so tourism could become more sustainable? What should policymakers do? Would the industry make use of the business as usual approach? More growth, and more growth. Would the industry block the way to achieving the sustainable development goals? And this is a big issue really in research. Now, what literature review shows is that quantitative studies are very popular. And I can understand why, because it's easier to, to conduct. They tend, however, to be descriptive. They tend to replicate methodologies and techniques, and they tend to have the highest citation counts in the peer-reviewed journals, in the top journals. Now, my recommendations would be that we need more research from the host and tourist point of view to understand their experiences. More reflexivity in research is also required. We also need for more interpretative studies, focusing on the social impacts of tourism, in particular on this new issue now on overcrowding. The positive approach has its own limitations of presenting selective truths, and you need to be aware of that. We are not reporting facts, yes? We're not reporting truths. The truth is a negotiable concept. Now, academic research is getting, however, commoditized. We're all aware of that. There are pressures in universities to produce more research, to bring income to the universities, and it has got an exchange value. The expectation is to produce research that has got relevant value, not just to universities, but also to our industry. We need to work together to produce research of value to tourism and sustainable development, and also to our students who are the curators of our scientific knowledge. And let me then conclude my presentation. Future studies should encourage reflection, debate, and action. Research agenda should include the impacts of tourism on local residents, including people at risk of being left behind. To leave no one behind in the 2030 agenda, it is critical to systematically collect evidence on whether and how tourism does actually impact people. Local communities should have a right to participate at various levels of development, in the planning stage, in the decision-making stage about tourism, because it does affect their day-to-day lives. Participation also should be meaningful. Local opinions should be incorporated into any future planning and development process. Now, the international community declared 2017 the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. In this context, it should be visible how seriously the international tourism and sustainability community and its institutional partners are taking the 2030 agenda. Conferences have taken place in 2017 and 2018 in Nepal on this particular theme, and there's a forthcoming conference in June 2019 in Da Nang, and you're all welcome to join us. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you again, because Professor Carlos Costa will be one of our keynote speakers. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Eugenia, a brilliant one. It's about sustainable development. And as Eugenia was saying, she organized a very important conference on sustainable tourism. Last year it was in Nepal, this year is in Vietnam. And we can also tell you that next year we will be organizing InvTour 2020, and the topic is going to be on sustainable development. And of course, that is going to be a pleasure to invite Eugenia as a keynote speaker. So next year, Eugenia, we hope to see you in Portugal. Okay? In the
Thank you
meantime,
very much.
Elizabeth has a question for you. Elizabeth, please come here. Elizabeth is from Germany, one of our professors, but she has been here for the last 30 years, I would say.
Yes, already. Yeah. Hello. Thank you very much, Eugenia, for a brilliant presentation, very inspiring discussion about sustainability. Already, as suggested by Jost Krippendorf, there is a lot of paradox in tourism, and you pointed out the most important issues here, and also our role as researchers and lecturers, teachers, in trying to enhance sustainability discussion in our courses and sensitize our students and also our partners about these issues, which are very, very important indeed. Well, I would have so many questions, but I just point out one here. Who do you think would be the most important of the stakeholders that could actually do something about sustainability? Do you think that sustainability should be looked at as being driven by market pressures? So should we look mostly at the market and its power? Should it be the businesses that should take that approach as a driver? Should it be governments? Who should be the most important player here? Or should it be us as researchers, as teachers?
I think all stakeholders are important in any decision making. Now, we have got responsibility, of course, for those we serve. As a researchers, I suppose you have the knowledge on how to go about carrying out the research, on speaking to the various parties who are involved in the tourism development, and to report honestly our findings. And this is very important, to let the voices of those who are not really have got the power to be heard. And unfortunately, in many destinations, and I've carried out research recently on ecotourism project in Crete, in Greece, and we have found out that the voices of the locals are hardly heard. There are plans there to build, for instance, a new airport, and the locals are very much divided amongst themselves. Many of them are uncertain about what is going to happen. So in this case, research into these stakeholders is very, very important in order to understand, how they perceive the sustainable development for them. What benefits would they gain? And this is a key issue, really.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, Eugenia, again, thank you very much for joining us, and let's keep in touch in the future, okay?
Thank you very much, Carlos.
Bye-bye, thank
Bye
you.
now.
Okay, now it's time to move from Eugenia, and let's go to Bulgaria. Hi, Stan.
Hi.
How does the weather look like in Bulgaria? Too cold?
Sorry, the connection from time to time interrupts, and I'm not always sure.
I was just talking about the weather. Is it too cold in
the
Bulgaria?
weather, yes, the weather is fine.
What do you mean
Something
by
like 6
fine?
degrees.
Is what?
The weather is fine, something like 12, 16 degrees from time to time.
Okay. If you want to come to Portugal, we have temperatures of, I would say, almost 20 degrees, so it's slightly different. I mean, the weather is okay, but the Brazilians are complaining. They say that it's too cold in Portugal, all right?
Yeah.
All right, so, Stan, thank you very much for coming. You may start your presentation whenever you want.
Yes. Do you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, perfect.
Robots in tourism. Okay, so thank you so much for this invitation. My name is Stanislav Ivanov. I'm professor and vice rector research at Varna University of Management, Bulgaria. I'm also the founding editor and editor-in-chief of the European Journal of Tourism Research, in which several colleagues from the University of Aveiro have already published. And I'm also the CEO of Zangador. This is a private consulting company in the field of marketing and tourism. and member of IEST. This year, I'm organizing the IEST conference here in Varna. So if you want, please join. The due date for submission of the abstracts is next week. So the presentation will be largely based on this paper, which is forthcoming in the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, Progress on Robotics in Hospitality and Tourism, a review of the literature, co-authored by me, Ulrike Gretzel, Katerina Berezina, Mariana Segala, and Craig Webster. It can be downloaded from this link. So robots have arrived, and when we say the word robots, many people start thinking about cute robots like coming from Star Wars. Of course, such robots, they can generate a lot of money for Disney, but we are not talking about such robots. Of course, other people, they are quite afraid of robots, and they think that robots are coming like Terminators to execute us. Of course, this creates a lot of money for Hollywood, but this is science fiction. And of course, we are not talking about robots with, which will go far beyond the human cognitive capacities. We're talking about such type of robots like manufacturing. Most of the cars are currently produced practically by robots, not by human employees. Also, robots are helping in warehousing, supply and logistics management, or in agriculture, so that they can check whether the soil needs irrigation. Also, autonomous cars, Dimitrios already mentioned about them, or in medicine. Many of the operations are currently implemented with the help of medical robots. But also, robots are used in warfare. This is the dream of every general in the world, to be able to bomb the enemy without practically sending their troops to the battlefield. Or we can have household robots which can clean, or robots that can clean swimming pools, or robots that can serve as guards, so that they can walk around equipped with cameras. They can identify people and identify weapons, and if necessary, report to human guards. But also we have robots like Pepper, which can be used for provision of information in the service industries. And let me see whether this one is working. Well, this is me talking to one such robot at an airport. So as you see, my experience with my interaction with the robot was not quite successful. I'm not sure whether it was my hard Bulgarian accent, or it was the information that was put in the robot. But I was expecting a little bit more interaction. Of course, robots can be used in education, for edutainment, or for entertainment in households, or they can be smart-looking and attentive robotic students. This was a robot that attended the PhD seminar at the Enter conference 3 weeks ago, or they can be number cutting robots. I put this slide especially for Dr. Ulrike Gretzel in order to fulfill a promise I made to her. So, but also we can have sex robots. Depending on the preferences of people, they can have different types of robots that never have headaches. And what about tourism and hospitality? We have robots that can serve as concierges to deliver photo items in room service or hotels. Dimitrios already said about the hotel, the Henna Hotel, that supposedly fired half of its robots. And these are some of the screenshots of the media. From my humble perspective, the robots that were eliminated were those for which the company incurred more costs than the benefits. So the company had to do some cost-benefit analysis well in advance. Of course, we can have drones delivering pizza, so that instead of bombing us with bombs, we can have robots bombing us with pizza, which is good for us but not good for the diet. And of course, we can have other restaurants where waiters can be substituted with such cute robots. And completely automated restaurants where food is cooked by robots, or telepresence, so that a keynote speaker, instead of traveling, can connect to such a robot, and the robot can move on stage, or for bars for preparing drinks, or for museum and art galleries. So this is my personal slogan: in robots we trust. And when we ask ourselves why robots, Stan, why robots? So why don't we hire humans? And this is probably the most important reason why companies adopt robots and automation technologies. This is the number of children per woman, which is plummeting since the 1960s, and currently slightly above the replacement number of 2.1. And in many countries, including Portugal and Bulgaria, it is well below 2.1. On average in the European Union is 1.5, meaning that every generation is about 25% smaller than the previous generation, which also means that there will be huge disruptions on the labor market, and companies will be forced to adopt automation. So, dear students, if you do not want to compete with robots, please reproduce and make children. So, research on robots in tourism. First, about research on robots, we have a wide array of publications, ranging from publications that say that robots will be our final invention, to others which say that robots are the solution to all our problems, and of course some others that took a more pragmatic approach, and of course research that deals with different aspects like social robots, autonomous driving, robot ethics, or sex robots. And of course, in fields of tourism, we have recent publications in different journals that appeared for service robots, or literature reviews on the topics, or about robots and service automation. This one was published in the journal of Aveiro, of University of Aveiro. Also others about the appearance of robots, or the long-term assessment of service robots, or creating experiences with robots, or the human-like appearance, the interactions, or how will robots transform the operations of companies in field of tourism, or attitudes towards autonomous cars, or hotel service robot. I recently co-authored 2 papers on customers' attitudes on robots in accommodation establishment, and I'm currently involved in one such global research. The first papers from this global research were published just 3 weeks ago. And of course, there's other research that deals with the cost-benefit analysis, hospitality facilities, but also publications that say that robots can at one point be considered as consumers, and we need also to go, in tourism, we need to go probably beyond humans and consider also robots, pets, and teddy bears. I'm also co-editing a special issue of Tourism Management Perspectives together with Ulrike Gretzel and Ian Ehlmann on the same topic, tourism beyond humans. And of course, something that is coming this year will be robots, artificial intelligence, and service automation, travel, tourism, and hospitality. So the research domains in the robots in tourism and hospitality literature, which we identified in our paper, can be identified as follows. These are the robot, the human, education, training, research, the robot manufacturers, tourist companies, the servicescape. So what we see is that the literature deals largely with the robot, but not so much with how how these robots interact with the human, either customers or employees. But also research needs to be done in the field of the servicescape, or how the robot impacts tourist companies, or how education institutions train human employees or contribute to the adoption of robots. What we done was quantitative and qualitative analysis of the literature. Within the quantitative analysis, what we can say is that we made a comprehensive review of all 131 publications in the field, which were available at the time of revising the paper. This was September 2018. Since then, 10 more publications were published, and they were, of course, obviously, they were not reflected in this quantitative analysis. Mostly we have conference papers, but papers also deal mostly with the supply side perspective. This is the viewpoint of companies, not so much the viewpoint of employees or the tourists. Also, regarding the research domain, we see that probably 80% of approximately 80% of publications concentrate on the robot, and this is normal, because if we do not have robots, the whole field of robots in tourism will disappear. Only few papers deal with the external environment that stimulates the adoption of robots, how education institutions should adopt, or robot manufacturers. If you look at the tourism sector focus, we have nearly 1/3 of publications dealing with restaurants, and but also others dealing with airports and hotels. Obviously, these are areas where you have high labor costs, but also in airports you have huge traffic of people, so that robots that provide information can save a lot of time for human employees. The other tourism sectors, they have received much less attention. If we look at the methodologies, engineering is applied in more than half of them. Of course, the reason is quite obvious. Most of the publications, they deal with how to create a robot that can be used in fields of tourism and hospitality. Fewer publications deal with biometrics or else, and also there are numerous that are conceptual or descriptive. If you look at the country where empirical research was done, we see that Japan and Germany and US are the countries where such empirical research has been widely used, but in other countries we have only a couple of publications. Obviously, for conceptual papers, there was no such empirical research. And if we make another cross-tabulation on the basis of which tourism sector and which research domain was used, mostly the robot and the human and the tourist company. This was the focus of research, and predominantly in hotels, restaurants, and airports. This is another cross table which also shows the research methodology cross-tabulated by the research domain. Regarding the directions for future research, the field of tourism, of robots in tourism is at its infancy. We just start the field. Definitely there are less than 150 publications in the field, and they will explode in the future. But what do we need to do? We need to measure the actual costs and benefits of robot adoption by tourism and hospitality companies, probably case studies, quantitative, qualitative methodologies. Also, the impact of robots on service quality management, what customers think, for example, about the service quality. The impact of robots on companies' competitiveness, the company's image, but also the impacts of robots on the wages and salaries in tourism. Will, for example, employees lose some of their social benefits? Will their salaries decrease? We don't know. We only speculate now. But also designing robot-friendly service, robot-delivered services, designing robot-friendly hospitality facilities, because currently all facilities are made only for humans, and it's very difficult for robots to navigate in them. but also acceptance of robots by tourists. If tourists do not accept robots, then it's useless for tourist companies to use them. Or acceptance of robots by tourism and hospitality employees, their resistance and how this resistance can be overcome if necessary. The human-robot interaction in a tourism hospitality context, and the role of robot appearance in this, or preparing tourism and hospitality students for the robotization of tourism services. How universities, for example, need to change their curricula in order to reflect the use of robots, artificial intelligence, and service automation in tourism industries. What skills tourism and hospitality students need in order to stay competitive on the market, but also ethical issues of robots in tourism, or legal regulation of robots in tourism. There is absolutely no regulation in the field. Or cultural aspects of robot adoption, because I can assure you that in some countries, the use of robots will face significant resistance. For example, you may have some wonderful robots which are very cute, very sophisticated, but if they are used in a country which values the production of alcohol more than the high level of technology, then probably these robots will not find their way in the hospitality industry. So thank you for the attention.
So Stanislav, thank you very much for your presentation. It's a really nice presentation and lots of information. And of course that this discussion is particularly interesting in many and in different ways, but in particular because we are talking about the hospitality industry. So the way we are going to bring robots into the industry is of course sensitive and it's challenging. Rui has a question for you. It's going to be a very short question and please a very short answer.
Hi Stan, how are you? Thank
Wonderful.
you for
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for your excellent presentation. It's very interesting and inspiring. You talk about robots, technology, and integration in our daily routine. But tourism activity, it's about people. It's about interaction, personalized services. So considering this, what will happen to people that works in the tourism sector?
Okay, this is a wonderful question. What will happen to people working in the hospitality sector? They will not disappear. Within the tourism industry, we shall have probably in the future something like two large groups. Automated properties, for example, automated hotels, which will have very, very, very few employees. This will be high-tech companies in tourism, but also we shall have high-touch companies, which will have very few, if any, robots and automation technologies. And of course, in between, we shall have various shades of gray. Companies using automation technologies for some activities and not using them for others. I'm personally quite optimistic that many people will remain within the industry. Probably they will not be involved in the so-called 3D jobs. 3D jobs, I mean dirty, dull, and dangerous. I'm sure that nobody wants to wash dishes. Nobody wants to go around and deliver small items orders for room service, or nobody wants to deliver the same information to every single customer, to every customer several times a day. It's boring. So this is where automation technologies will go to. But there will be many other jobs that will appear that do not currently exist. For example, robot renting facilities or robot repair facilities, or using humans who organize entertainment with the help of robots. So people will not disappear from the hospitality services. They will just change their role in it.
So they will not be exterminated.
No. Well, hospitality is about humans. It's the role of technology is to facilitate human happiness. And if technology does not contribute to human happiness, we don't need to use it. So this is my viewpoint. Robots and automation, they make me happy. So that's why I strongly support automation. Of course, other people do not like this. So for them, automation
Okay, thank you. Thank you for.
will be different. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stanislav, it was really nice to see you. Okay, in case you want to continue, you may continue. And now we are going to move again from technology and moving towards, I would say, sociology, anthropology, philosophy. It's a pleasure to see you, Luís Trigo, from the University of São Paulo. And it's also going to be really strange to native speakers. We speak Portuguese and we'll be communicating in English, which is a bit strange, but we will try. Okay, Luís, thank you very much for coming and for joining us.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much for your invitation. And wow, we will talk about something a little bit different. I will talk about our conditions and problems and the perspectives of tourism in Brazil and in Latin America. We are having a very special reality in Brazil. My name is Luís Trigo. I am from the University of São Paulo. I am full professor over there. And I teach, I study, and I work for tourism in the last 40 years in Brazil. So I have been following what we are doing with tourism in this country and in Latin America. Well, I will give you an example of this week. This week we had bad news and good news in tourism. The good news is finally Brazil probably will get out of demand visa for the United States, China, Japan, and Canada. It's a deep change in our foreign policy. In the former years, if United States asked visa for us, we ask visa for the American tourists to come to Brazil. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem because if a person lives in Utah, for example, he must go to Los Angeles or to Miami to get the visa. In the last months, we gave the electronic visa, which is easier, but probably in the next days, the United States tourists, the American tourists, the Chinese, they won't need a visa to come to Brazil. And it is very good. Those are the good news, for example. What was the bad news? Another scandal of corruption was discovered in the last 20 years involving the Ministry of Tourism of Brazil. The Ministry of Tourism of Brazil was created in 2003 by President Lula. And it was an old demand of the trade, of academy, etc. But since 2011, in the government of Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil, who was to impeachment, we are having problems with the Ministry of Tourism, with corruption. And what's the big problem? In the last 10 years, we are having 6 million of foreign tourists in Brazil only, even with the World Cup and even with the Olympic Games and another big events related with sports. Well, I think everybody knows about the book of red cards about the corruption at FIFA. This book was not published in Brazil. I had to buy this book in Portugal, for example. Well, why when you in Barcelona, in Porto, in Lisbon, in Dubrovnik, you have over tourism, and we have under tourism in Brazil. We have a good tourism, a domestic flights, domestic tourism was increasing in the last years, but with the economical crisis, it was a little bit problematic in the last years. And in terms of global tourism, we are still underdogs. Well, in 2005, we published this book. It means Regional and Global Analysis of Brazilian Tourism. 900 pages. 900 pages in 2005. And in the last years, we have been publishing in English. I have a friend, Alexandre Panosso. We published this book by Springer. And this book is about tourism in Latin America. And our colleague, Guilherme Loma, published tourism in Brazil with chapters of several researchers. And me and my colleague, we have in 2003 and 2009 published books about the problem of tourism in Brazil, and several of other colleagues in several universities around the country. We have 12 programs of master degree, and we have 4 programs of PhD in tourism in Brazil. What happened with all this research, with all these books, around 50 researchers? The trade and the government returned back to this research. I wrote one paper in 1990, look, 1990, 29 years ago. It was the Congress of Unfort in São Paulo, Brazil. It was my first Congress. And I published a chapter about the problems of the Brazilian tourism. There is one part where I wrote about Rio de Janeiro and Brazil 29 years ago. I could wrote these pages this week because the problems are still the same. Violence in terms of traffic, etc. Violence in terms of crime, sexual exploitation of children, and poverty, lack of infrastructure, with some exceptions. What improved in the tourism in Brazil in the last 30 or 4 years? Hospitality, we have very good hotels and resorts. But the problem is our best resorts are quite expensive. If you want to stay in a real good resort in northeast of Brazil, you are going to pay around 300, 400 euros, for example. And you can find something better and cheaper in some places around the world. But hotels and resorts are quite good. The gastronomy is very good in Brazil. We developed a wonderful chain of Brazilian restaurants, and bars, and pubs, etc., and international cuisine. Our big problem is structure and the quality of service, high prices, and violence and corruption. We are trying in the last years to fight against the corruption. We had the Lava Jato operation. The Lava Jato operation got included in a former president in the jail. The former president Lula is in the jail for corruption. And a lot of big charges are also in the jail or will be prosecuted, and they have to pay millions and millions of dollars pay back to the Brazilian government for corruption. This is a good news. The problem is we are still having the political effects of the crisis, and we had the institutional and the political crisis. And our new government, elected in a democracy, is not so democratic. We are having an extremely right-wing government, a brand new government with less than 2 months, and they are still trying to discover what to do inside Brazil with the problems of Latin America, like Venezuela. Venezuela is our neighbor of the north. And yesterday, Venezuela closed the frontiers with Brazil. They closed the frontiers with Brazil, the governor of Maduro, and probably they will close the frontier with Colombia. At the same time, the United States government, which afford Brazilian nowadays government of the President Bolsonaro, they're trying to do, we don't know exactly what with Venezuela. For the first time in decades, the Brazil is facing a very big problem with a neighbor, Venezuela. And of course, facts, the tourism, it affects several areas of the Brazilian life, especially in the international scenery. Another good point in Brazil is the air companies. We have nowadays ABAR, Brazilian Association of Airlines, and they are working with the new government, a new government organization which controls the Brazilian air traffic control in the civilian hands. It's good. It's also very good. But we have the problems of infrastructure in several airports. And, but in the last years, we had the privatization of some 6 or 7 airports, and it was quite good. So this is our reality. We have some good news in tourism, in gastronomy, in hospitality, and we have some bad news in terms of management of tourism in the private sector or in the public sector. And in countries like Brazil, like every country in the world, the country needs the government, including, if not to help, not to get trouble with the economy. And that's our challenge. We are trying, after 14 years of left-wing, light left-wing governments, we will have a right-wing government to solve some problems which are still strong in our Brazilian life. And of course, it's a problem. When the Europeans, when the North Americans, when the other Latin Americans think to go to Brazil, the first thing they feel is fear for the violence. And what are these numbers? Let's talk about numbers. 63,000 of murders per year, and around 50,000 people die in the traffic, accidents, violence in the traffic. It's a problem. We have 110,000 people dying every year in Brazil with violence. And this is not a low number, and some Brazilians say, but if you go to Paris, if you go to Los Angeles, you will have also violence. No, it's a lie. It's not true. The violence in Brazil is bigger than in another country. And if we won't face it, and if we won't have a very good public policy to avoid the violence, we'll have problems. And it includes the social justice. It includes a better distribution of wealth. And I'm not talking about a socialist government. I'm talking about a capitalism in terms of Canada or Australia or even Portugal. So we have these challenges nowadays. And for example, with the University of Aveiro or other universities in Spain and Portugal, when we have a very good agreements, and we are always in Europe, we see the differences between the development of Brazil, of tourism, the Brazilian tourism, and in other countries, including countries, brand new countries in terms of tourism, like Thailand, like Malaysia. They did a very good development of tourism. And we cannot have a train direct to the airport in São Paulo. We had a new train who goes to the Guarulhos International Airport in São Paulo, but the train is at one airport. Where you have no bus and the terminal, and of course, good project. So, I think the following problem or solution to It's this year. It's a decision for the Brazilian tourism, for Brazilian politics, and we will have to fix it. Do you have some questions, Professor Carlos?
Yes, thank you very much, Luis. It's a great presentation. Of course, we are going to have one question from one of our guests, Professor José Manuel Simões from the University of Lisbon. You know each other, don't you, José? Ah, all right.
Hi, Luis. How are you? Do you listen?
Fine, thank you.
Everything is all right. Yes. It's not really a question, but you talk a little about this new era of the government in the North America and also in South America and Brazilian. So can you talk a little more about the impacts of the new politics in Brazil for there are the open for new markets, there are new constraints for the development of tourism in Brazil, or what do you think about that?
Well, the ideas are good. We're talking about open markets, and it's important. We're talking about a modern capitalism in terms of Brazil. In the last decade, we had a state, a strong state, who controlled or tried to control the tax, the employees, the investments, and it's not so good. It worked in the first government of Lula because we had a very good economy in the world, around the world. In the following years, we had problems with this government of corruption. And the corruption is a bad thing in any kind of government, right or left. The population, the people, worked hard and they tried new solutions. And the new solution, which is not a new solution because the nowadays government is a little bit fascist, you know, and they don't have problem with that. It's like the Trump government in the United States. He has a very conservative point of view. Does it work? We don't know. That's what we'll have to find out. For me, if we, the civilian society, the society in general, we must stay closer from the academy, from the government, from the companies. We must study more. We must participate more. And we will have to get in Brazil. The country is divided. The country left the last elections divided. And it's a problem. We'll have to fix it to do a very good market. We need a real good market. We need to get in contact with Europe, with the United States, with Israel, with the Arab world, the Middle East. And if you want to take care, we will have a problem with, for example, the Middle East, the Arab world. It started with problems because the Brazilians sought to change the capital, the Brazilian embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like Donald Trump did in the United States. It could be a problem. So I am in favor of the capitalism, of an open market, but I'm also in favor of democracy, of diversity, and to respect the right, the individual rights. That's our challenge.
Yes. Thank you very much, Luis.
Ok, Luís, thank you very much. É um prazer ver-te aí do outro lado do oceano. Hein? Para o ano temos em Vitor. Não te esqueças de colocar isso na agenda, ok?
Já está na agenda, estarei aí. I will be there in Portugal in our Congress.
Yes, of course. Okay, thank you very much again. So, now we are going to have a break. We deserve coffee. Coffee will be served right in the end of the corridor, okay? 10, 1, 11. It's the number of the room. And then it's going to be 15, 20 minutes maximum, okay? So try to eat fast, please. Thank you very much. Okay, you continue.
We have put a piece of paper, one each row, on the desk. So if you find that piece of paper with a number, Those persons seated on that seat, you need to take it out and present to the registration officers there because you will get a simple prize. Yeah, okay. So see you later for our next round session, which is the roundtable discussion. Thank you. So you can check a white sticker. While waiting and before proceeding to our next sessions, I would like to, of course, comment about the presence of our dear professors, guests, speakers for today's event, as well as our students from the not only in University of Aveiro, but also from other institutions. And since our event is being live streamed, so we have some viewers from several countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Mozambique. We have, of course, from Brazil, aside from our speakers earlier. And we have also from the Philippines, of course. And Korea at the moment. So this is the good thing about our technology. Even if we are here in Portugal, now we are being seen live worldwide. Okay. So I hope you had a wonderful snack, courtesy, of course, of our Governance, Competitiveness, and Public Policies Research Unit, sponsored by our research unit, of course, as well with the Department of Economics, Management, Industrial Engineering, and Tourism. For our second session, we will be having the roundtable discussion and debate. So I invite everyone, just feel relaxed, okay, comfortable. This will be an open forum for everyone. And everybody is, of course, encouraged to ask questions, especially from our students. I know that you have a lot in your mind about what actually would you like to do, especially when you do your research, or you are really interested in doing writing articles and several things or projects. Apart from this, I would like again to thank the technical team, our staff for having especially our first part for a very smooth video conferencing and presentation. Okay, so let's proceed. For our second session, we have this roundtable discussion and debate. And we have, of course, I think most of you know all of them, very famous in their respective fields. Okay, so let me introduce the first guest speaker and panel member. Our first speaker and panel member is no other than Professor João Simoes. Professor João Simoes is currently the full professor at the University of Lisbon and is in charge for several projects and research in his field. It's involved in, I think, in geography, sociology, and sciences. Our next guest speaker and panelist is Professor Paula Remualdo. She is also a full professor at the University of Minho and has authored several articles and journals in her field. She is now currently the leader for a project which is called Lab 2PT, Landscape Heritage and Territory Laboratory in the Department of Geography in University of Minho, and currently the head of Geography and Planning Research Unit. Our third, of course, very familiar to all of us, no other than the head and director of our department, okay? And I think no further introduction, everybody knows also his list of achievements as our full professor in tourism and the head of the department with coordinator for the Tourism and Development Group of GovCov. At the same time, the coordinator, director for eTour Solutions, and also editor for the Journal of Tourism and Development, and several other journals, articles, and publications. So without further ado, I would like to open now the second session for today's event. And let me call on first Professor Paula Remualdo to do a short presentation before our panel.
Thank you. So, good morning to all of the presents. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here at the University of Aveiro. Always a pleasure, okay? Please believe in it. I have a big problem because I'm not usually able to speak in English in Portugal. I didn't practice, so if I use some Portuguese words, please don't hit me, okay? So, what I'm trying to tell you here today has to do with some contribute to research on tourism and also what we have to deal with in the near future. So my agenda is structured in 3 items. I will remember here the main global risks, what we are able to do, and how can we contribute as tourism researchers. So we all know already at this time, at the present, that we are in the 4th industrial revolution. It lasts for several years. And we can see here that it is focused on the cyber-physical systems, and also that we are trying hard to maximizing well-being, creativity, innovation, but the big problem is that it will be always in progress and we won't have time to stop, okay? We can see also from the latest report on global risks that we have many risks out of control, and also that global risks are intensifying, but the collective willingness to tackle them looks to be missing. We can see here some of them, of the more important ones, like, for example, the natural hazards and the climate change, etc., etc. Also some social risks, we will see some of them. And we can see also that they are, all of them, they have links to each other, okay? So we can here highlight, for example, profound social instability, failure in national governance, also in regional and global governance, and we can see many examples on that in Portugal also, okay? Some failure in urban planning, for example, and also and always the changing climate, and for example, also the unemployment and the underemployment. But we can think that perhaps people are not yet able to know what they have to do. Do you know what you have to do? You have to do now to change this scenario? No, okay. I'm beginning in my 50s to think a little bit more about that. And for example, in the next month, I will begin to go to the University of Minho by bicycle. I don't know if I will have if you heard about some accident, it will be me, perhaps. Okay, but I'm beginning to be less consumer, for example, and I have not yet an electric car. It will be in the next generation, perhaps in 5 years. But we have also big problems because if everyone will have an electric car, we could not manage that. The Earth cannot manage that. Everyone to have, for example, everyone have electric cars. We will have also problems. So, I think we have to know more about this and how to contribute. My contribution will be very little, I suppose, but if everyone will do, for example, for 30 years, I recycle, and at that time they thought 30 years ago that I was a little bit crazy, but now I can do it, and anyone will say that. And we can here remember something like this, like Émile Durkheim, concerning the concept of anomie, and we all know that we have a big fragmentation of life and relations. We have a breakdown of or absences of social norms and values, but we know that we need to travel, and even with low salaries, we will continue to travel. This is the good idea. But we must think more about some other philosophers, like this one, well-known book called The Scent of Time, and you can see here the crisis in our sense of time and the imperative to work, and we all think that we are very happy that we accomplish, and we don't think very much that today we explore really ourselves. Also a Portuguese one, as you well know, António Damasio, and also something that we are beginning to speak a lot, the circular economy, and what it aims, for example, to redefine growth, focusing on positive society-wide benefits. You can see here the three principles also, and you know also the figures, the circle concerning these things. But how can we contribute as tourism researchers? We all know it was when you sent me the invitation, I remember, oh, okay, it's not only FCT that reminds us of the 17 development goals, but we have to think also when we do our presentations and do our investigations, our researches, and I think about some of them. So, you will see here some of the focus of the United Nations. You can see that in the internet, in some of the links. I think that we can organize and study new ways of doing creative tourism. Rogelio didn't spoke about a project that we are that is ongoing until the end of this year, that is Creator, that deals with creative tourism in the medium-sized Portuguese cities and in rural spaces. It is not, as you know, it is not a massified segment of tourism. It comes in the late year of 2000 with Raymond and Richards, with Ray Richards, and I think we can help proposing new creative activities by using, for example, using this circular economy by using renewable products, for example. I can show you here a map of something we did a year and a half at University of Minho, and we can see that our country can play a positive role in this segment, and also that the south of Europe is now dealing a lot with this kind of segment, okay? Like Spain and, for example, France and even Italy. I can show you some activities we are doing with 40 pilot institutions at the present. For example, something that will occur next Sunday, new experiences with tourists learning how to shear a sheep. For example, something that is occurring today, for example, we have in the northern region a very good example that is very well structured at national level, like São João da Madeira, to be a showmaker for one day, for example. And we know that when we are talking about this, we are distinguishing this kind of segment to the massified products, and we think about helping tourists to become almost a citizen in some places, in some destinations, and to co-create with, for example, the local community. So, many more structured way these creative initiatives to propose new creative initiatives, and in what concerns the third, the 10th, and 11th development goal, you can see also some of the statements from United Nations here. I thought about that, this kind of fields of research that we can improve mainly in our country. For example, continues to study the perceptions of residents concerning tourism industry. We know that outside our country, since the 70s of the last century, we have plenty of studies, but we continue not to have many in Portugal. We have here many colleagues that did some good works, for example, concerning Aveiro. To involve them in a more participatory or democratic planning of the tourist activity. Also, something that we did 2 years ago at Boticas municipality to evaluate if really the residents are able to participate in tourist activity in a more active way, because they are always complaining about the local authorities. Oh, they must heard us. But at the end, when we ask them how can they participate, they are very, very shy in what they are able to participate, okay, the activities. To explore the social platforms where visitors and residents publish their photos. For example, Panoramio, I suppose it ended some time ago, but for example, Flickr, we can use also this kind of platforms. To study the environmental impacts of tourism, we have plenty of studies about the economic impacts. We have also of the socio-cultural impacts. We know that the socio-cultural and the environmental impacts are less tangible, but we need to continue to investigate more these kind of impacts. To study also gentrification, which is a study that it began in some cities, but for example, some others that are improving a lot their tourism, like for example Braga, that become the second European destination recently. It can be also a good destination for this kind of study, and to investigate new challenges for tourists. We can see, I will pass this slide on gentrification. Also an example, I'm ending, okay? To study, for example, the thermic biocomfort of tourists in cities, we are also trying to do that at the University of Minho. We can see here, I saw in the morning only the increase of the numbers of the studies concerning the robots. I don't like robots yet, okay? I have, what do we say in Portuguese? I know. Local, alojamento local. Okay, local, that's it, thank you very much, Elizabeth. And I don't agree what the colleague say some minutes ago when he said that we can use a robot to give the information. We have, I want to say what is the name of my local accommodation, okay? But it is in the northern region. We have 9.6 of evaluation, okay, at present. And I'm sure that it is the information that we give when they arrive at the accommodation and the human relationship that we have with them. So I agree with others to dish the wash and other thing, okay? But not in this kind, because I think it is why we have such a high qualification, okay, score. So we can see here the number, also the number. It was in the same period. I saw in the morning that it was beginning in the 2015. So it is the same for evaluation in studies and climate. We have now around almost 1,000. It is a PhD student that is doing this, and we can see also the fields that are concerned with these kind of things. We can see also here the hotspots, okay, of climate vulnerability, and we can see that we are one of the big problems in the Mediterranean region, okay. We can see also that Portuguese are away from this investigation yet until present, okay. We can see here the universities of the almost 1,000 papers and books that we are reading, okay. It is Australia and mainly Australia and China that is working on this. And I'm almost in the end. In the 15 gold, we can see also that we have a good practice. It began a good practice. For example, in the Azores, it is a late new that we have invitation to plant a tree for the tourists, and we can investigate more these new motivations and profiles of tourists. It is a partnership, as you can see here, between the government and as you see, it is a good idea because it aims a memory and it can be visited on the future on the return trip, for example. Okay, we can say that, so it is a good idea to make them return to Azores. We have also some papers that now help us prove that nature makes you being more creative. Okay, it is also you can see, for example, this one that is entitled here in the. So it is good for not all kind of tourism, but some kind of tourism. It is good for you, okay? And we must be more responsible travelers. And let me speak a little bit at the end about mindfulness and some routes that are created, for example, to small groups that. I saw one of them some months ago in the northern region, nearby the beach. It was only them that were there. For example, some routes that now are being done in all Europe, and that implies also Portugal. Someone that goes in group doing surf, but at the same time does also some yoga nearby the sea, or some mindfulness, or some Pilates, okay, or some body balance. I don't know if you understand what I'm telling you. Pilates, perhaps, okay. And so we must concentrate more in our present and don't be so as we have in our daily life. Be stressed with so many stimulus that we have, okay? At the end, we Portuguese, we need to work to create more partnerships, okay? I know that we are improving, but we need to create more partnerships, and we need also, I'm ending now, to go more outside the university campus, because the local and regional actors continues to see us the ones that are too much theoretical, that we know that when we are evaluated, they don't they don't evaluate positively what is extensão universitária, you know. But we have to contradict a little bit that, and we can see also in this, to end my presentation, in this project where we are, where we have 30 investigators with four people from other countries like Ray Richards, and after almost 3 years, it continues to be very difficult to interact with pilot institutions, the 40, because they continue to see that we are too much theoretical, we are concerned with the papers and to publish, we don't have too much time to go to and accompanying the activities, and also we can see that they have a lack of theoretical information, so I think we must work better these type of things, okay? Sorry to take part of your time. So it was my little presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Paula Remualdo. Yes, she reminded me about the Creator project, and I remember I was there in the conference last June in University of Mineo. So thank you very much for reminding us regarding this very significant project that is being undertaken here in Portugal. And next, of course, let me just add something, of course, with regards to our next guest speaker and panel member. I just like to add that our Professor Jose Manuel Simoes is also the coordinator of PhD program in tourism in the Institute of Geography and Spatial Planning in University of Lisbon. And his field are in spatial planning and management, tourism planning, urban and regional development, collective equipments programming, evaluation of EU programs and initiatives, and tourism. Undergoing current research in coastal zone management, urban and regional development strategies. And of course, full professor at the Institute of Geography and Spatial Planning. Professor Jose Manuel Simoes, a few words before we have our discussion and debate.
Thank you. Do I need that? Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. No, first of all, you correct now my name, but João is a nice name also, but José is much better than João. So I'll start. I would like to thank to Carlos, Professor Carlos Costa, for this invitation. It's always a pleasure, an honor. It's a fantastic professor, and for me, it's also a very good friend. And today come with a nice tie, with a nice color of tie, red like me, good. So I belong to the University of Lisbon. I work in the Institute of Geography and Spatial Planning. The name is IGOT, in Portuguese is IGOT. Nowadays I'm the president of my institute. It's a problem, but I'm the president now. They forced me to accept. It's true. I'm also in charge of the unit research inside of Centro de Estudos Geográficos. The name of my unit research is in tourism, is tourism, culture and territory. And I'm also in charge of the PhD in tourism, that one of the University of Lisbon. I must say that why geography and why tourism is so important inside of geography, because Centro de Estudos Geográficos, it was founded 75 years ago. One of the oldest in Portugal, research center in the high studies in the universities. And the first approach to research in tourism, it was there by a colleague, Carminda Cavaco, in the 60s. And it's easy to understand because territory is very important because tourism, we need to move to another place. Sometimes we need the territory. It's not only where the things happen, it's also the resorts. And there are impacts, positive, negative impacts. There are problems like natural hazards, risks, climate change. For instance, we have a thesis last year in PhD about climate change and tourism. And so that's why it's also very important territory. But that's why it's easy to understand. Carlos asked me not to make a presentation, so to talk a little about what we have been in the last months. It's this paper. It's the agenda. It's a national agenda for tourism research and innovation in tourism, and we have been. It was promoted by the FCT, the Foundation for Science and Technology in Portugal. And me, Carlos, and our colleague from University of Algarve, João Albino, and also Antónia Correia from the European Universidade Europeia. We have been in charge of the coordination, but all of these people here and there, they participate in this agenda, the elaboration. Because, as you know, tourism inside not here in Aveiro. Aveiro and Algarve, they have been pioneering in the course in PhD in tourism. But usual, like me, in the University of Lisbon, we are the biggest in Portugal with the 50,000 students. But traditional, they look to the questions of tourism and leisure like this. Tourism, what's that? This is not a science. They don't like very much. It's true. So that's why we have problems to start the PhD. We started the PhD 10 years ago, and we have also the master. And you choose my photo from Facebook. I'm like a tourist. Good. It's appropriate. Yes, it's a good one. It's a good one.
It's the
good.
Best
So
of the three. The best.
And I feel confident. I look like a solarium because I take light here, so it's good also. But as you know, in the agenda from FCT, they don't have tourism like a team, an important team, and it's not possible nowadays to candidate projects in the research for tourism. We need many times to candidate in geography, in the economy, sociology, and so on. Yeah. That's why it was important to promote. We discussed this with the president of the FCT Foundation institution, and the idea is to create an agenda with different subjects, and for the research we have 5 dimensions. We choose 5 dimensions: territory and resources. I was in charge of that. Culture and globalization, behaviors and profiles, competitiveness and sustainability. I can talk a little about territory and research because I was in charge of that subject in the agenda. And there are if you if you pay attention to the presentation of Dimitrios, this kind of vortex, everything is changing. And I was talking with Elizabeth in the middle of the presentation, but in the middle of this vortex, in some years, where is the place for men? I can put the question like this. This so creative, this innovation, there is a place for, in this smart tourism, there is also a place for stupid tourism? That's my question. What I mean? I think one day it's possible we need to found the identity of the places, the things different, not using so this kind of technology. We need to go out to the country, to some places isolated, and to feel the place, to feel the people, to feel the food, to feel the smell, to feel everything. I think there are always a place for that, even with this vortex of evolution. You know, this is really a vortex. There is in YouTube, perhaps you know, there are a video, the name is Did You Know? Did you know? It's something prepared some years before by Sony and other enterprise, and they make upgrades every year. And they present many things there, many dates, and I remember this. Radio, when appears radio, it was to reach something like 50 million of consumers. They need something like 18 years, 20 years to reach there. But Facebook, they need only 1 year. So everything is so quickly, so fast. Then sometimes we need to think, to stop a little. That's why I think there is a place also for stupid tourism. Let's say stupid tourism, because nowadays everybody names everything. I'm a geographer and urbanist also. I become from geography and special planning. And for instance, there are books about cities nowadays with more than 30, 40 names. Smart cities, slow cities, creative cities, intelligent cities, pop-up cities, and sustainable cities, resilient cities, and in tourism, nowadays it's also the same. So, but become again to the agenda and what happened in the last years. If you look to the articles, if you look to the publications, to the books, to the chapters of the books, we can find this idea. We have 3 moments. Let's say we have 3 moments. First, we have in the last 10 years. Let's say in the last 10 years there are 3 big trends. First, we have many articles about the patterns of the tourism in the world in different scales, tourism and the regional and the local development, the intensivity of the tourism in the places, different models for the spaces of tourism, of tourism, and so on, and also some valorization of heritage. After, we start to look to the carry capacity of the places, competitiveness of the regions, territorial marketing, landscape, and sustainability, and so on. And nowadays, there are lots of articles talking about natural hazard, climate change and tourism, gentrification, modeling, special information, big data, networking, cooptation, and so on. And sometimes we are talking about, there are many things we say it's interesting, but sometimes many people are talking about subject they don't know really nothing. And the most interesting example for me is this over-tourism and gentrification. I would like to talk a little about gentrification because it's half of a truth. Because there are problems, there are good examples in Oporto and particularly in Lisbon also, because the low cost and because Portugal became most important destination in the world, because there are problems in other countries and so on and so on. But it's true, there are a big pressure in the some historical quarters of Lisbon. And there are people moving also. There are some things changing in that places. But let's talk a little about Alfama, about Moraria, about Bairro Alto, the old quarters of Lisbon. And because before tourism, before this attack this invasion of tourism in Lisbon, Alfama lost more than 14,000 of apartments, of people and apartments. They closed, they are closed. They are nothing there. And they lost more than 20,000 people living there. And at same, but no one cared about that in that time. Let's talk about Bairro Alto, because Bairro Alto became the most interesting, one of the most interesting places for night, for bars, for restaurants, for designers. But this starts many years before tourism. Moraria now it's a quarter, very interesting quarter even for tourists, because there are more than 75 different nationalities of people living there. It's interesting. They create another identity, but that it was before tourism. So even when you talk about physical rehabilitation of these places, we need to make some rehabilitation of these places. Every process of physical rehabilitation, normally they have problems of gentrification. Gentrification is people who need to go out and to come. They are pushing there and to come another kind of people. And because why? We are talking about apartments with 30, 35 meters squares, not more. So the consumers, they don't want that. Sometimes they don't have WC in these apartments, really. So you need, when to make a physical intervention in this kind of quarters, in this kind of buildings, in these kinds of apartments, we need sometimes to put 2 or 3 together to create one. So if there are people living there, they move. It's even if there are not tourism. And the problem, what are changing in this kind of property? It's the golden visa also. It's not tourism. It's golden visa. It's banks. It's people come and to buy. So when we talk about gentrification, it's a problem. There are a problem related with tourism. There are lots of cities with this problem, Dubrovnik, Barcelona, Venice, and so on. But let's put in the correct way and the complete way the picture, not only some part of the picture. That's why I would like to talk. And another thing important for me, and I don't want to use much time. Another thing important for me, it's the tourism should be something to change, to improve the local development of the, and sometimes we talk about identity of the places. But what is identity of the places? Everything changed. Everything changed. The identity of, let's say, of Viana do Castelo, in nowadays is not the same as Viana do Castelo 50 years before. Something is different. And so you are always create new identities. And it's true that the tourist is one of the most important and sophisticated consumers in nowadays, because they are using to have things in the apartments, in the hotels, good food, good products, good bed, and so on and so on. So they don't want only thematic parks. They don't want to arrive and to see only the Americans. The Americans are different. But the other people, they like to see something different, something from locals. But these things, there are a process of innovation. What is important? When I was from your age, I collect many things from other places of Portugal and made handicrafts. ceramics and wood and so on. I have that things, I put that thing in my room, living room and so on, and every year I put some of them I store them out of my house. Now I have nothing. I like, but I have nothing because I prefer art and other things. But I think there is a place to make innovation. The tourist, you can keep some things of the identity and to profit. Perhaps you don't understand what I'm really talking, but do you know? You can look to the things of, for instance, and in Dubai, they create a new museum inspired of the rose for the desert. Do you know what's that? It's a stone. It's the wind to create a stone, and the cover of the museum looks like, you go to the net. It's like the stone. So it's something reminds the identity of the place. So it's something very modern, but with the identity of the place. And I think we need to do that in many things we produce. And Portugal, I can say there is a place in the old economy for that. And we are traditional, very innovative, very creative. So I think there is a place, important place for tourism, but for tourism for everybody, for different profiles, for the people who like technology, but also for the people who like good food, good wine, good landscape, good weather, and that's why tourism matter and territory also matter. That's all.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Jose, regarding your insights about so many things in terms of tourism, territory, planning. And we have learned and heard a lot of things about it, which is really, of course, very true. And we really need to consider and look these matters carefully. And from Professor Jose, we will move now to have the presentation, of course, of our head and director of the department. I would like to add, of course, as well, we have Professor Carlos as the coordinator of the assessment and accreditation of the university tourism courses of the Agency for Assessment and Accreditation of Higher Education, A3S, 3ES. And just to add as well, involved in a number of national and international tourism projects. And of course, with our three professors, there are, of course, a lot of these projects, and I think we will not have time to mention all those projects and research, and they are very respected in terms of their field. Professor Carlos, your turn.
So, thank you very much again, and thank you very much, Rogelio. Rogelio is doing a brilliant job, as you can see. He has been behind and now on the front office of this conference, and we really appreciate, the amount of work he has done over the last weeks in order to promote and to organize most of the things that are happening here. And of course, thank you very much to our research team. They are sitting somewhere there in the back, but they have been very helpful and working for us. Thank you very much indeed. So let me just say a few things, 5 minutes only, because the idea is to open the floor, and what we would like to have is at least 30 minutes of debate. You can ask your questions, so get ready for questions. If you don't ask questions, we will ask the questions, okay, for you. So only a very short. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you the way we see tourism as an economic sector, of course, and as a research area in this department. Two things. One, tourism is expanding really fast in this country. And we used to have this idea about tourism as a territory, and that is the most important image you may get from tourism. It's about territories. So we are not selling fridges or umbrellas. What we are selling, in inverted commas, is the territory. And therefore, you know, the origin and the focus of tourism is clearly the territory. However, over the last decades, things have progressed in a way that tourism has become important because it has become a business. And therefore, we have two worlds operating alongside each other, and very often they don't touch each other. It's the economics of tourism and the territory. And that is the reason why, in a number of situations, namely in terms of governments, we have the Ministry of Environment or Planning that is responsible for regulating the territory. And then, on the other side of the coin, we have the ministry, you know, we have economics, basically, the area of economics. And both worlds do not go together, and that is an issue. And that issue has to be researched in different ways, okay? But that is a clear issue that we have in this area. Second thing, tourism is very special because you can say whatever it is. Of course, that tourism is an area. Tourism is becoming a scientific area. No doubts about this. We can open that discussion. No problem about this. We are not going to open it now, but we are going to say this. Tourism is special in the sense that it includes and comprises a number of things. We are talking about services. That is the end of tourism. We are talking about experiences. What people really want to have is fun. They want to travel to feel good. And when we say that we want to travel and feel good, that comes from the interaction, and that is tangible. The first part is intangible. The second part is tangible. And when it comes to the tangibles of tourism, we are talking about accommodation, and accommodation has to be fully redesigned in the future. We are talking about food and beverages. We are talking about transportation. So, and then operations, of course, all the operations that embody, I would say, the tourism industry. So, the new economics of tourism are particularly important because they have to look at this, you know, people traveling but landing on some areas, these destinations, these territories, and therefore the economics of tourism have to match and they have to come from the interaction of both worlds. Second thing that I would like to say, the way we are doing research in this area. Tourism, since tourism includes a number of different things in a very, I would say, normal and very healthy way, the research centers are, in an informal way, are networking in Portugal. And it's excellent to see that the universities, Braga, Aveiro, even Porto, and then Coimbra, then we have Lisbon, Algarve, in a very normal way, we are linking and we are networking. Are we competing? I wouldn't say that we are competing. We can say that we compete in inverted commas. But the thing is, our businesses are different. We deal with territory. Some people deal more with the marketing. Others deal with the economics of tourism. And in the end, and this is not only just to give a nice idea about what beautiful is this world, but in fact, there is a very close and strong cooperation between the Portuguese universities. Third thing, and I will stop there. Professor José Manuel was also talking about this. The research agenda that was designed and has been concluded recently in the Portuguese National Research Council, FCT, Fundação para a Ciência e Tecnologia, was designed in a very modern way. And the research agenda is combining 4 main directions, and you all should organize your research in a way that you will be touching these areas, because these will be the key areas in the future. First, when we talk about tourism, we talk about consumers. And of course, that we have to look at the demand side of the tourism sector, okay? So that is about marketing, and also marketing of the destination. So the interaction, again, between people and the place is becoming increasingly important. Second thing, we are talking about competitiveness. Tourism in Portugal is very important, so as it is important across the globe. Wherever we go, we see new policies and new and emerging destinations. So don't start dreaming with the situation that Portugal is getting all the prizes. That is excellent news, of course. But we are also getting all these nice prizes because the world is very unstable and people are looking for safe destinations. And Portugal is safe, thank God. And of course that tour operators will not be sending tourists to war scenarios, okay? So that is the situation, and we should be very clear about that. And things will change in the future. Provide that the place changes, provide that the territory changes, tourism will also change. Look at Brazil, for instance. Brazil is a giant. Brazil is beautiful. It has 220 million people and only 5 million tourists. It's almost nothing. It's a continent. Once Brazil comes back from the crisis it has, of course that a number of tourist flows will be diverted to other places. And this is the situation we have in the Americas and also in Asia. Last thing, territory, culture, and sustainability. This is what we have also in the agenda. These are the areas where we should pay particular attention, because the idea of unique and uniqueness comes from this blend, the way we cook tourism at the destination, by bringing the territory with the culture and how we make it sustainable. That is the critical thing that we should do in the future. So, thank you very much. And now it's time, Rogelio, you will manage the rest of the session, okay? Yes. And let's open the floor and let's ask questions. And we have 30 minutes, okay?
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Carlos, for that message as well. And now I think our participants have the idea of really what really our research in tourism really leading to, and what kind of things that we need to consider. Again, I would like to remind everyone, feel relaxed, okay? And just if you have something in mind that you would like to ask our our guests here, they will really accommodate your questions freely. If maybe in Portuguese, no problem. Although I only speak or understand little Portuguese, Entendo pouco, compreendo pouco Português. You see, okay. So, no problem. Our guest speakers will entertain. So, do we have any questions now? So, do we have?
Vocês fizeram os dois ótimas intervenções e eu estava aqui a tentar anotar alguma coisa daquilo que disse, entretanto, o Carlos, e que é verdade. Finalmente nós estamos a conseguir e também nos estão a dar essa possibilidade, não é? Em relação a vários projetos. Mas só nós temos que abordar o território, e isso é que talvez ainda falha um bocadinho, de uma forma mais holística, que é bastante difícil, não é? Se a fórmula fosse fácil, para tentarmos encontrar a tal sustentabilidade. E depois, a experiência que eu estou a ter neste momento, eu sempre fui muito adepta disso, mas agora estou a ter mais experiência nesse domínio, são as equipas multidisciplinares. E nós aprendemos muito. Claro que às vezes dizemos assim, vejam lá como é que o colega que é, por exemplo, da Sociologia pensa a questão do turismo. Nunca pensei desta forma. Também podemos dizer que, se calhar, são abordagens que não fazem muito sentido para nós. Mas nós acabamos por mudar um bocadinho da nossa abordagem. E eu acho que as equipas multidisciplinares são algo muito importante para continuarmos a desenvolver. Já estamos a desenvolver. No caso, por exemplo, do projeto Creator, somos sociólogos, geógrafos, economistas, antropólogos, etc. E estamos a aprender muito uns com os outros. Claro que no início foi difícil, ainda para mais sendo portugueses, não é? É sempre muito difícil. Mas eu acho que o caminho é um bocadinho por aí também, não é? Eu acho que estão tão relaxados que eu não vou conseguir fazer perguntas.
So, thank you so much, Professor Paulo. Do you have anyone here to start, to ask questions, queries? Don't be shy. Feel free. We have. Yeah, Yes. Yes, all right, Professor. Next question. Anyone? Okay, there we have.
So what do you think that the main focus should be, or what the themes that are not too much talked about in the literature? Okay, so what is the focus that that we should take? What we should focus a bit more? I don't know if I made myself clear or not. O que é que acha que é o ponto que está mais a falhar na literatura atual, e onde é que um professor ou alguém que queira escrever se deva focar?
So, to anyone from our panel?
Yeah, let's take a couple of questions before we start.
That is the first. Do we have another question?
Bom dia, sou Thelma Brito, sou do Brasil, estou chegando na universidade, sou caloura. Eu gosto muito da linha da professora Paula, que busca um pouco a parte humana. Então, robôs estão aí para nos ajudar, né? Então, com toda a tecnologia, como podemos fazer para manter o humano? Porque o turista vem para sentir, para cheirar, para aproveitar o país, com a tecnologia ajudando, mas como fazer para que não se perca a essência do turismo, que é a hospitalidade?
In Portuguese or in English? English. Okay. Good morning. I liked very much your presentations. I think that you focused very important points for researchers and for students that are trying to improve their skills. And I would like to ask, in a world where the connections have been improving and suppliers and demand are much more in connection, what are the major opportunities for doing research related to this, and what are the greater difficulties associated to this? Because Professor Paula Remaldo talked about co-creation. This is one of the topics that is an opportunity of research because of this connection, but maybe more, and probably the also what you talked about concerning the research teams involving people from different areas is also another thing. But what are the main opportunities for research, giving these connections that are putting more effort in the researchers? And this is also linked to what Professor José Simões said. This is a reality in the territory too. So I don't know, some networks, how to do research in such a different world with so many big connections that didn't exist some years ago.
Thank you. So we have 3 questions, and we'll let the panel to respond. I think very strong answers and clarifications. Did it, Professor Paula? You'd like to? Yes, yes, no problem. No problema.
Eu que estou agora nos 50, eu própria estava a chegar a uma situação que iria provavelmente começar a sentir-me cada vez mais triste, sozinha neste mundo, que tem tantas ligações, mas nós sentimos tão sozinhos, não é? E eu penso sempre que as pessoas nos 50 têm 2 caminhos. Ou vão em frente e começam-se a adaptar, isto também para chegar à tecnologia. Embora sejam um bocadinho mãos tortas com a tecnologia, mas também tenho já usado razoavelmente bem a tecnologia. Ou vamos em frente e nos adaptamos, não é todas as mudanças, mas algumas que nos sejam favoráveis, ou então nós começamos a envelhecer rapidamente, não é? Eu estou neste momento muito pela componente humana, porque eu vejo que ela está-se a perder de uma maneira, até noto isso nos alunos, que já estou quase há 30 anos na universidade, e os jovens neste momento com tanta coisa não são mais felizes do que nós éramos na altura. Aliás, até os vejo muito deprimidos, de forma quase constante, e às vezes tenho que os chamar, entre aspas, ao meu confessionário, que é assim que lhe chamam, o gabinete, para poder ajudá-los um bocadinho. Que também me ajuda a mim, não é? Tentando ajudar os outros também me ajuda bastante a mim. A parte humana, por isso é que eu disse que não gostava muito ainda dos robôs. Gosto um bocadinho da tecnologia, já vou falar um bocadinho disso. Dos robôs, a parte humana parece-me que é essencial neste momento. Por isso é que eu falei ali um bocadinho, foi muito rápido, desculpem, foi muito rápido, em relação à anomia, em relação àquele senhor que não sei dizer o nome, que é sul-coreano. Depois, não era o Emil Durkheim, era outro, não, era outro que estava a seguir. O António Damasio. Nós estamos numa situação no nosso dia-a-dia em que é tudo menos humano neste momento, não é? Por isso, o que é que acontece? Nós, se não tivermos algo muito humano durante o tempo de lazer e de turismo que temos, então nós não vamos conseguir recuperar. Esse é o problema neste momento. Nós cada vez estamos a ter mais momentos para fuga. Ontem à noite, no mostrado que estava a dar, as minhas alunas no fim da aula estavam à procura, 4 à procura, de repente, para uma fuga a Barcelona daqui a 2, 3 semanas. E realmente as pessoas estão em constante fuga daquilo que é o seu dia-a-dia, não é? E elas ainda não entraram na verdadeira selva, não é? Ainda não entraram na verdadeira selva. Por isso, as pessoas, no momento de viagem, têm que também sentir um pouco mais de humanidade, porque senão, se tiverem algo que é muito similar àquilo que têm no seu dia-a-dia, também nunca mais conseguem recuperar. E eu gosto da tecnologia. Eu uso o Facebook, vou pondo de vez em quando algumas coisas também, as redes sociais, mas só tenho um autocontrole muito grande, que é 5, 10 minutos por dia, ok? Vou ao ResearchGate também, mas não vou lá mais, a maior parte das vezes. De vez em quando há dias que me dá para ir mais vezes, não é? Natural. Por exemplo, a realidade aumentada. A colega fez a pergunta. A realidade aumentada, eu parece-me que não é realidade virtual, não é? Realidade, eu nunca fiz os Pokémons, nem quero fazer, pronto, mas é uma coisa similar, por aquilo que eu entendi. Mas a realidade aumentada, por exemplo, é algo, por exemplo, os geógrafos neste momento estão a conseguir trabalhar isso, e o web mapping também, não é? Nós temos um bocadinho mais fácil, não tanto nós na nossa idade, mas os outros mais novos. A realidade aumentada pode ser uma tecnologia que pode ser usada de forma muito simpática. Por exemplo, há uma tese de doutoramento que foi defendida há alguns anos e que agora até continua a ter patentes, o Dr. Miguel Pereira, que não sei se conhecem, que fez doutoramento, é geógrafo, fez doutoramento na Universidade de Santiago de Compostela, e depois foi para a nossa, está num dos projetos nossos, e que fez, por exemplo, para os como é que se diz em português? Agora não sei dizer em português. Os peregrinos, passando em Barcelos, provavelmente eles também têm necessidade de vez em quando de ter alguns momentos de quebra e relembrar o seu mundo, que não é aquele mundo para onde eles estão a passar, não é? E até poder de forma mais, não é virtual, bem virtual, mas nesse momento até um pouco virtual, ver, por exemplo, como é que os monumentos eram no passado, quando estão a olhar para determinado local, ou não estarem tão sozinhos na sua viagem e ter alguma informação, e aí a tecnologia pode ajudar. Não acredito é que ela ajude o tempo todo. Não sei se pode ser eu que posso ser já velhinha e estar já um bocado ultrapassada, mas eu acho que aquilo que eu vejo dos jovens, que também para eles é capaz de não chegar, porque eles nunca estão satisfeitos, não é? Neste momento, vocês têm muitas coisas positivas, não é? Eu estou aqui a dizer as negativas, mas têm muitas coisas positivas que eu gostaria de ter na minha geração, quando era mais nova, que não tive, mas tem muitas coisas negativas. Eu acho que a tecnologia... Qual é o problema da tecnologia e porque é que as pessoas estão a chegar muito rapidamente a depressões? E a grande escala, a um número muito elevado. É que as pessoas estão muito novas a ter demasiados estímulos e as pessoas não conseguem fazer várias coisas ao mesmo tempo, não é? Não se consegue estar numa sala de aula e estar ao mesmo tempo a tentar ver o Facebook e a ver no Instagram e mais não sei o quê. É natural. Porquê é que nós olhamos para os jovens? Eu vou fazer um trabalho de campo, eu com a idade que tenho, e normalmente vou lá à frente e quando dou conta, passando os minutos, estão todos lá atrás muito longe. E digo assim, coisa estranha, eles deviam estar todos perto e até passar-me à frente, não é? Porque realmente eles cansam-se com uma facilidade enorme neste momento. Eles cansam-se tanto porque os estímulos são enormes e as pessoas cada vez vão ter mais necessidade de ter momentos em que não precisam ter tantos estímulos assim. E têm que se focar nelas próprias, porque depois, se estão sempre com estímulos, também não é o problema do mindfulness, ok? O problema não, a parte positiva, é que nós estamos sempre, mas é olhar para o futuro e não vivemos o presente, não é? E esse é o vosso problema neste momento. Desculpem lá que eu falei demais, mas há muitos exemplos de tecnologia que são ótimos, não é? São coisas ótimas.
Let me say something. First, I must say to Paula, because I'm not anymore in the 50s, so that's my problem. But yes, but anyway, with this body and this skeleton, I ran marathons, 42 kilometers, 195 meters. Anyone ever done this? That's your problem. That's your problem. No, but let's talk a little about, because 40 years of my career, I have been also not only researcher, not only teacher, but also at the same time consultant of plans. I'm planner. I'm urbanist and I'm planner. And I have been in charge of more than 100 plans in different scales, regional, local, in cities, rural areas. Some of them in tourism subjects. And perhaps one of the most grateful, it was one I've been in charge in Macau, that creation of Cotai. I've been one of the planners of Cotai. Now is the foolish in the extreme Orient. But as planner, I forgot one subject. When I was talking here, I forgot then that a problem looking to the relation tourism and territory is because sometimes we have been create some no places. what I mean with that. There are places in Portugal, only they have life in summer, on Easter, not more. After it's nothing. There are in Algarve, there are even not far from here, in Quiaios, some 20 years ago it was like that. It was nothing. But there are worse. There are places like in the near Lisbon, in the north of Lisbon, in the coastal area of Alentejo, that they start and they finish with nothing. There are the idea of big investments, and there are nothing there. But they have, it's what we call a cemetery of lights, cemitério de candeeiros in Portuguese. And that is a problem for territory, for sustainability, for landscape. So a subject for me is that kind of question. For instance, climate change, territory and tourism, because climate change exists. And if you look at the series of numbers of the tide, we can see the increase of the tide every year in the last 200 years. So it's possible to see that. It's easy. And if you look to Portugal, there are some areas. This area, every year, the average of the sea coming in the land, it's about more than 60 meters each year. And as you know, there are places, urban and touristic places near this area. So this is a problem, this is a subject. But I'm looking for the subject as geographer, as planner, but for economists, for other people, for sociologists, should be different, perhaps. But the importance in our days, and it's because Carlos, me, João Albino, and others, we decide one day we are friends. So let's try to do something together, not only the University of Aveiro, Lisbon, and Algarve, but the all universities of Portugal and the old schools of polytechnics and so on. And there are different kind of people. And let's try to make a network and to work together. Because my experience in planning, in special planning, is I have been in charge of, in the coordination of teams with 20, 13 people more, but there are geographers, economists, people from agricultures, from in transport, mobility, and so on and so on. So I think there are conditions now in nowadays, and there are motivation, and with the agenda, it's the big example to do something in cooperation, let's say in competition, cooperation, and at the same time there is a little bit of competition in between the schools, but it's normal.
Can I say another thing? Yeah. Okay. So, complementing what was saying Professor José, I think one of the main positive things that working together with other professionals from other fields is really understanding how the qualitative and quantitative approaches can be developed. Okay, because sociologists will continue to be the main researchers or the main experts, for example, in the qualitative methods. And I am geographer. I'm learning how to deal with that, but I think with the help of this kind of colleague, I can improve a lot. Okay, and also with the economists that work a lot with quantitative methods, and for example, you don't deal a lot with GIS, for example, with the global, how do you say in English? Global Information Systems, okay? SIG in Portuguese. Sistemas de Informação Geográfica, okay? that can help a lot. So with this kind of team, we can improve a lot the results in our papers and books, etc. Okay?
Okay, thank you. I think we have one last question from that side.
So hello everyone. I actually have a question from one Silvina that's assisting our event live on YouTube that would like to know the opinion of everyone from the panel about the recycling behaviors. So how can we make tourists behave environmentally friendly in the tourism destinations? That's our question.
Hello. Okay. I had an additional question about tourism and gentrification. Both of you talked about gentrification. Professor Paula briefly addressed it in relation to tourism. Professor José, not João, talked about, clarified some areas, showed that gentrification is not all tourism's fault because it had been happening since a long way before. But what we can extract from what you both said is that tourism does have a role in gentrification, especially in the context of the sharing economy and these less formal modes of accommodation. So my question is, how can we find a balance, or is there a balance, or if there is one, how can we achieve it? Because the sharing economy is there, it's here to stay, it's not going anywhere. The Airbnbs and all these less formal accommodation modes are also here to stay, they're not going anywhere. And they do have some role in gentrification. So how can we find a balance between these modern types of tourism and accommodation and transactions and not expelling the people from their homes? And also, just one more comment about what Professor José said about stupid tourism or dumb tourism. I believe that smart technology can also be used in favor or in service of stupid tourism or dumb tourism. For example, I like cycling, and I like to talk about a lot, so sorry for that. And I like traveling by bike from time to time. So I haven't done the marathon because I cannot, I've done the half marathon, but not the marathon because I cannot run anymore because of my knee. But I do like 300 kilometers of cycling. So for me, that's the definition of dumb tourism and stupid tourism. And that's what people say to me, oh, you are stupid. Why are you cycling until Lisbon? And it's rewarding, what can I say? And so it's the definition of stupid tourism, but it's also, I also use smart technology for that. I use the GPS because I am stupid, otherwise I will get lost. So yes, that's how I see this relationship between smart tourism and dumb tourism. And if you have any further comments, it will be appreciated. Thank you.
Beginning with the first question, responsible travelers. It is what you were asking, yeah? How being recycling. Oh, habits as travelers. But it has to. You have to be first. You must be responsible in first place as citizens. Otherwise, you won't be able in your trip where you don't want that someone oblige you to do something. If you are not a good citizen in your country, I think it will be very difficult to be recycling. I don't, não estou a perceber muito bem, por isso. Environmental friendly. But it's what is saying Carlos. It has to do with education. I told you yet that for 30 years I do recycling. Okay, so I will, as a traveler, I will use the same. I will do the same habits. So, for example, if I have a little paper in my hand, I think I want. How do you say in English? Throw away that, okay. I think it's very difficult to. We in Portugal, in my experience as leader of local accommodation, I can see that. I think it is not new for you. The people that come from the northern countries and are always, I can notice that, always more responsible, okay? But I think it has to do with the education. We can do when we are traveling, for example, I cannot say, for example, if we... Posso falar em português? Pronto. É assim, nós temos sempre um problema, nós a maior parte das vezes, quando viajamos, eu tenho já alguns hábitos, por exemplo, de usar produtos ecológicos, outras coisas, pronto, uma data de coisas em casa que não são ainda suficientes, não é? E alguns hábitos que não considero que ainda sejam suficientes. Mas nós, ao viajarmos, eu acho que é quase impossível, neste momento, alguém ter um comportamento 100% ambientalmente, que seja em termos ambientais sustentável, porque nós podemos ir para uma rota que seja natural, num país qualquer, mas a maior parte das vezes vamos viajar de avião e nós sabemos que o transporte de avião é um dos mais poluentes que há, é um dos mais agressivos para a nossa saúde, para a nossa própria saúde. Há pessoas neste momento a fazer desintoxicações depois de viajar. Parece-me um bocadinho difícil. Mesmo até os peregrinos que podem eventualmente não ter uma pegada ecológica tão acentuada, também a maior parte deles vão acabar por usar, alguns vezes até ficam feridos e muitas vezes até usam táxis e até vão de carro, depois não fazem o percurso todo. Parece-me muito difícil alguém fazer uma viagem neste momento em que consiga ter a 100% um comportamento que seja ecologicamente repreensível. Parece-me difícil, mas claro que se nós não desenvolvermos algum comportamento que seja ecologicamente positivo, também vamos continuar a ter à perna, não é? Nós já estamos no ponto de viragem, não falamos aqui disso, mas nós estamos neste momento no ponto de viragem, ou é agora ou é nunca, é o que parece, ou pelos especialistas, não é? Ou nós fazemos alguma coisa agora em termos de mudança, ou então as alterações climáticas vão estar até ao fim da nossa vida e para os nossos filhos continuarão aqui a causar grandes estragos, não é? Mas eu parece-me, não estou a ver assim, não sei se o professor José, já ia chamar João. José, desculpa.
Jota.
Eu sei, João, não sei porquê.
Agora é Jota.
Não sei, eu acho difícil. Eu estou a tentar ver-me eu a viajar. Eu tenho alguma, às vezes até sou um bocadinho chata quando vou com as pessoas. Armar-me um bocadinho ecológica, mas é só um bocadinho, porque também não vou muito longe e há muita coisa que também não a sei. Mas parece-me muito difícil neste momento nós, se fizermos uma viagem longa, contribuímos realmente muito para o ambiente, para a questão ambiental. Embora, por exemplo, quem faz o turismo criativo, normalmente não o faz massificado, pode contribuir para que esses destinos não se desenvolvam de forma muito rápida, tão rápida, claro que não são tão sustentáveis em termos económicos, não é? Mas não se desenvolvam de forma tão rápida que depois realmente acabem por criar grandes estragos na comunidade local e em termos ambientais também, não é? Por isso é para pequenos grupos, mas mesmo assim estas pessoas que chegam lá não vão de bicicleta até aos destinos, não vão de trotinete, como está agora muito na moda, não é? O problema é às vezes a viagem para lá chegar. E aí nós já estamos a dar cabo do ambiente e a dar cabo da nossa saúde também, não é?
Only two comments. First, the question of sustainability and the recycling of. Well, I think nowadays is a new society is borning because there are more education and with the medias. Oh? Yes. Even with the medias, there are lots of image of the problems of plastic in the oceans and so on. So, a new society is borning more responsible about that. And this started in the 72 after the first summit of Rio de Janeiro with the problem of this kind of thing. So I think there are people, it's a question of education. It's not only for tourists, it's for everybody because it's a new society. But at the same time, yesterday, and my dear friend, I call him GP, is João Pedro Matos Fernandes, our Minister of Environment. He announced some decisions for the new years, for the new months, to stop the using of some plastic and so on and so on. It's rules, but rules is important. That's why I pick up the question of gentrification now, because it's also a question, it's a movement. It's a question of balance. You are right, it's a question of balance. Because tourism is important. It's important for our economy, for the society. It's natural to put people dealing, to talk and to change ways of life, ways of culture. So, but there are also a question of rules. We can't have in the old quarter, in a building where there are 2 or 3 old people living, right? We can't open 1 or 2 hostels for young people with different hours of coming, with noises. It's impossible. So we need to have rules also. We need to have, first of rules, we need to have a strategy. We need to have a strategy for we want or not. There is a carrying capacity or not. There is taxes or not, and so on. So it's possible. It's important to have balance because we can't expect that in some places the tourists become as a friend. We'd like to have tourists, and nowadays in that kind of places they don't want tourists anymore. They say you are terrorists. They paint in the moors, in the walls. You are terrorists. Go out. Go out. So there are always in life, in everything, is a question of balance.
Can I say another thing? We can also see gentrification as a positive thing because we have the physical rehabilitation of parts of the cities. They become more enjoyable, more pretty, okay, and also the well-being of the people that are inside that accommodation, because as Professor José said before, they had to. It was many times very little apartments without conditions, and we can see also it in a positive way that we have. Now, in nowadays, part of our cities, our main cities, they passed from a process of rehabilitation, and now they become more useful for people. The problem is the people that are inside that buildings. Okay, only that, because the other things are positive. We cannot only see negative things in this kind of process.
Muito obrigado. Thank you very much for those replies and answers to the questions. And I think we will now move on to the closing of the session. Yes. Thank you very much to our guest speakers and panel members. And yes, thank you. For our closing session, may we invite Professor Antonio Luis Teixeira, our director from the Doctoral School of the University of Aveiro, and of course, again, our director of the department. Professor Antonio, few words. Okay. Before moving to the closing session, okay, today we had a wonderful discussion about so many topics regarding tourism and tourism research. We had a smart tourism towards 2030, a topic discussed by the first speaker. Then we also discussed about sustainable development, which is critical and important towards achieving the UN SDG for 2030. Especially in the context of alleviating poverty and how we can build sustainable cities and institutions. We had also a discussion in terms of how technology, robotics, and I think it also includes about artificial intelligence, which is also a very, a fad and a fashion now in terms of research, not only in tourism, but in other fields. And this was discussed, of course, by Professor Stanislav, together with some challenges and opportunities as well in terms of over-tourism and climate change, and a particular case of Brazil, where it was discussed by Professor Luis Trigo. And the second part, we had a discussion of a presentation in terms of the creative tourism, how co-creation also work in terms of how we deliver and how we really need to look research in the context of not only at the present, but also in the future. Together with a very important a message from Professor Jose, now I'm correct, about the National Research Agenda. I think it's very significant for all of us, not only for Portuguese, but of course to everyone. Because in every country you have key specific agenda, but of course we are here in Portugal. We need to really look on how we really shape and how we really put together our research themes. And this is very important. For us, the researchers, students, professors, academicians, whoever, we need to look all the time the international scope, at the same time the national level, what are actually the key issues that we really need to prioritize. And that is very significant for us in order to follow and towards the achievement of those objectives. And with that, with those information, I think we have limited time. I will now invite for the closing session. Professor.
Yeah, let me just say a few words, 1 minute only. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Antonio Teixeira. He's the head of the doctoral school and is going to close this session. It's always a pleasure to see you here in the department. It was the first time we organized a seminar, workshop, whatever you want to call it, with this format, mixing, you know, an internal and an external panel. It seems that it was not that too bad, which means that we will try and we will do it, we'll repeat this again in the future, even because, you know, with the budgets that are shrinking all the time, we have to look for different ways of optimizing the resources that are available. Let me thank only the speakers, our internal panel, Professor José from the University of Lisbon. It has been a pleasure. Professor Paula Romualdo, it's a pleasure, from the University of Minho. And of course our virtual panel coming from the UK, Dimitrios and Eugenia, Stanislav from Bulgaria, Luis Trigo from Brazil, and Eugene was in Malaysia. Let me also thank Rogelio. He has been most of the time behind, and today he was on the forefront and is doing a very nice job. So thank you very much, Rogelio.
You're welcome. And thank you very much also to Professor.
Yeah. Thank you very much to
to everyone.
Yeah. The researchers sitting there
Yeah.
because they have been backing Rogelio and organizing this. Let me also thank the stick, the technicians. Okay, it worked very well.
Very well.
And you should tell your colleagues in the rector's building that we should be careful about the way we are, reorganizing the university, because they play a critical role in terms of, broadcasting all this and networking the University of Aveiro with the world outside. And this is something that we would like you to convey, the message that we would like to convey upstairs. And thank you very much to you all, to the audience, our colleagues from the department. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So thank you all for being here and for organizing the whole thing, and Carlos for inviting me to here. It is always a challenge when I come here. I come even a little bit earlier just to understand a little bit, because it's so diverse and so challenging every time that I sit here. I see different models, I see different science chapters, I see different media of interaction. So I really appreciate this kind of stuff, and clearly it's one of the things that I take as granted for inspiration, and I will take to other fields, which is also my duty as a doctoral head of the doctoral school at the university. So we see the whole type of initiatives in all the departments and all the fields, and then by that we try to cross-fertilize all the things. And every time I come here, I come with good surprise. So I just want to thank everyone, and I learned a lot about many things that that was just on my 20 minutes here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Just for 5 minutes, and we have actually to give this to our guest speakers and panelists. May I invite Professor Antonio and Professor Carlos to hand over these Let me just read this. This is a certificate of appreciation, of course, from us. It's hereby awarded to Professor Jose Manuel Simoes in recognition of his invaluable contribution as a guest speaker and panelist to the 2019 International Agenda for Tourism Research, given this 22nd day of February 2019, here, of course, in Dejate, University of Aveiro, signed by our very own Professor Carlos Costa. Of course, we would like also to call our next guest speaker and panelist, no other than Professor Paula Remualdo, in sincere gratitude for her contribution and, of course, support to our international agenda.
Can I?
Yes.
He's very human.
I know Professor Paula since last year in Creator Conference. She was the one who organized the Creator Conference, remember? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And yes, thank you very much. We really appreciate your presence. You actually came all the way from Lisbon, Professor Jose.
Professor Paula, I know you're very busy with your schedule, but I would like just to highlight, of course, to thank everyone. University of Aveiro, the Governance, Competitiveness, and Public Policies Research Unit. We say we are the best research unit in the university. The Department of Economics, Management, Industrial Engineering, and Tourism, the biggest department in the whole university, of course. Yes. We would like also to thank the Pro-Rector, of course, the UA Doctoral School, especially to the STIC staff. You really did a very wonderful job. Thank you so much. We really appreciate Gilberto, Joao, Pedro, and the rest of the team. They really did wonderful, and we didn't have any problem regarding the video conference presentations today. The Pessoal Técnico Administrativo e de Gestão of the JADE. We are very thankful for all of them, for all the preparation of this event. To our professors in tourism, management, economics, industrial engineering, and to other fields, our guests, I think I better mention because actually we have guests from Cámara Municipal Espinho, Situr Leiria, ESTM IP Leiria, Escola Secundaria Oliveira Ferreira, EPH, IP Porto Alegre, CEAUP, Universidade de Coimbra, ISCA, of course, the ISCA group. They came really as one group, so thank you so much for your support. University of Jember in Indonesia, Les Canox, Authentic, Doro de Aveiro, representatives of municipalities, local universities, and higher education, Coimbra, Leiria, Porto, Porto Alegre, Minho. Researchers from the research unit, the team there at the back. We have there Marilia, Dina, Medea, Ivana, Margarita, to the rest of the professors from the Tourism and Development Group, representatives from private companies and organizations, the media who came to cover our event, vocational and high schools, and of course, to all of you, muito obrigado. Thank you so much, and we really, really appreciate your presence for today. And hopefully, we will see you again in the next event. By the way, before I move on, just promoting GovCop Research Seminar, February 27, February 28, we have the deadline for the second issue of Journal of Tourism and Development. So hopefully you will submit some of your friends. On March 18, we will be hosting the University of Aveiro, the presentation of candidates to the European Parliament. So we have representatives from various parties. So it's a very important event for all. And next month, we have another event. I will translate Tourism, Museum, and Community. Challenges and opportunities in the creation of networks of museums in local communities. And that's all the events that will come next month. So thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you. Muito obrigado. Next year, okay, thank you and have a nice day.